is shocking that he was allowed to enter her. I mean, you know me. Diabolical. Pick me is inadequate for whatever this woman is. I'm very sad and annoyed that we got 3 parts of a reunion focused entirely on Westmanda and the fallout of them getting together, and they contributed literally nothing. As a woman, why are you defending a man? Okay. We know many things about West. You know, he's not the most handsome. He's not the smartest. He's not the most interesting. He's really kind of nothing as a person. And then she wanted to go get this P in her V. And that's why they had to put the statement out so quickly. The easiest, most basic part of the job, you gotta sit down and watch shit. And she didn't even do that. But she put that bun in her hair. They have failed at the basic rule of reality TV, which is be interesting. They couldn't even do that. West Wilson got fired. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I'm losing it. I had to even refilm this disclaimer clip because my camera filmed it in the wrong format. Basically, I spent the past 3 days trying to recover this video. This video was supposed to be posted and live 3 days ago. And because of my own faults, I accidentally deleted a bunch of the files from it when it was exporting, and I almost lost the entire project. I have scoured my computer, my phone, and DaVinci Resolve to be able to get this put together back in one piece. But if there's anything that's like weird or out of sync, I'm sorry, I really am. I just can't keep looking at this because I already spent 16 hours editing it. And then I spent 3 days trying to fix it when I accidentally broke it. So, thank you for giving me grace in this, my time of need. Okay, goodbye. Even with 3 parts, even with Mother Hubbard getting activated multiple times, even with Sierra and Kyle phoning in West Wilson's secret girlfriend Miha towards the end of the 2nd part, the 3-part Summer House reunion was never going to be satisfying, neither to the cast nor the audience. It's not because West and Amanda were damned if they did and if they didn't apologize. It's not because they had no choice and no agency in the situation. If they had shown up to the reunion and honestly sat with the negative impact that the thoughtless and honestly cruel manner in which they entered into their relationship had affected the cast around them, everyone in the audience would have looked at people who were unwilling to let it go and rightfully, honestly, called them out for being behind, for not being willing to accept an apology for a situation that didn't even involve us, right? Multiple things are true about this situation. You can suck it dry of all of the context and say this is just a guy and a girl who liked each other and decided to start dating. But if you know, you know. Their choice to start dating secretly, whether it was, as I believe, a year-long affair that had been being conducted in secret over the course of multiple summers, or if it is how they claim and double down on throughout multiple parts of this reunion, just a month-long realization that culminated in them hooking up and then being filmed hooking up and having the threat of that video being published push them into hastily releasing a public statement about their relationship before they had even had the chance to define it for themselves. Either way, the relationship was going to have major fallout because of the connections between the people on the cast. We saw what happened with Scandoval and Vanderpump Rules, and whether you're one of those people who says this is nothing like Scandoval, or you're one of those people who says this is actually worse than Scandoval, you can recognize that Scandoval had a profound impact on the future of Vanderpump Rules as a television show. Because it went the way that it went, it fractured the friend group that is supposed to be at the center of the show so irreparably that they had to reboot the show for season 12. There are reasons that I have for why that reboot actually happened that we will get into much later. But the important thing to note is that this was not just a choice about a girl and a boy, which is very infantilizing of these two grown adults, deciding that they liked each other so much that they could no longer ignore their feelings for one another and being swept off their feet by the passion of the situation. These are two people who we know are very aware of how the public perceives them and how the people in their friend groups perceive them. So the idea that it did not occur to them once over the course of this month in which their feelings were growing, or over the course of the year that I think that they were hooking up, that them doing this was going to have a serious impact on the future of the show that made both of their careers. I find that personally to be absolutely laughable, that they never thought that this would seriously harm the future of the show and the stability of the relationships that they had built over the course of their years being on Summer House. And with that knowledge and with that awareness, they still chose to hide their growing attraction to one another, lie to people about the fact that they were conducting this secret relationship, and come to the reunion so and out that people have now started blaming beta blockers for what is very clearly a much harder substance than what anyone is able or willing to admit on Bravo. Amanda and Wes were never going to show up to the reunion in any other way. They were never going to show up to the reunion and really face the consequences of what they had done. And that is because they knew that they had nothing to lose by choosing to inoculate themselves and choosing to show up in the brazen and unrepentant manner that they did. They could say the words, "I apologize, I hear you, I have a lot to think about," over and over and over and over again, as I'm sure ChatGPT coached them to do before they got on the show. But none of that means anything if we don't see the actual impact of the words being said to them hit. If we don't feel the actual sense that they are recognizing that what they have chosen to do means something to people outside of themselves. None of that matters if, as Lindsay says at the end of the third part, we, the audience and the cast, leave the show feeling like we learned literally nothing over the course of 3 hours of a reunion. That's not to say that those moments didn't happen during filming. That's not to say that things were not revealed during filming of this, the 10 hours that they filmed this reunion and then cut down to only 3. But it is to say that I personally believe that the powers that be in production and at the network let Amanda and West know that they would be safe regardless of how they chose to show up at the reunion. They signaled to them from the beginning that they were on their side, and that is why we got the reunion that we got. In watching this show play out, in watching this season of television, and honestly really the last 10 years of Summer House play out, I've noticed a lot of patterns that kind of clue me into how we got to this place, why Amanda would think that getting with West was a good idea, why West would think that getting with Amanda was a good idea, and also why the audience would be so up in arms about their choice to be in this alleged relationship with one another. I've also thought a lot in my years of watching reality TV about the ways that power structures show up in these shows that we watch for ostensibly an escape. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Neida, and this is my channel where I talk about literally whatever I want. Sometimes it's books, sometimes it's movies, and sometimes it is the fallout of a honestly very confusing affair between two members of a reality TV show that certainly will never be the same. If that is something that is interesting to you, please hit the subscribe button down below. I put out videos like this as often as I can. It's averaging out to about 4 a month at this point. Maybe not 1 every week, but you're going to get 4 videos in the month. I can tell you that. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications on when I'm going to be posting. And yeah, I'm going to throw it back to a past version of me who is going to give you a public service announcement about where I am in my life right now and what is going on with me. And that past version of me is also going to be doing the beginning part of this video. So we're going to throw it back there and then come back to today and talk some more about Summer House and the reunion and why I think it went the way that it went. If you've been following me for a long time, you know that I have had a kind of rough past year. Lots of things happening, family members being hospitalized, my dog was hospitalized. I ended up having to extend my graduate program, and now I am on track to graduate on the thing. I might actually cut that out for privacy purposes. If you didn't know, I'm getting a master's degree in history. In the process of doing that, I am trying to renew my visa so that I can stay in the UK while I work on my applications to PhD programs. And part of that will require, one, me paying my visa fees, and two, some extra research around the United Kingdom. There's some documents that are housed here in Scotland that I need. There's some documents that are in London. There's some that are in Lisbon. So I kind of need to travel to look for the things that I need for my PhD thesis and the proposal as well, because I really would like to know that the stuff exists before I'm like, hey guys, can you pay me to research this? And then I go to research it and I'm like, oh, wait, this is nowhere to be found. That all being said, I have relaunched my GoFundMe with a new higher goal. That is linked in the description bar down below. As always, this is really money that I need to help support my research and help me be able to go to the next step, which is a PhD. I'm going to get a little bit like parasocial and emotional right now. My dad passed away when I was 17. He was always old, like my whole life. He was always much older than everyone else's dad. But he passed away when I was 17, and he was a doctor of philosophy in history. And I remember when I was young, I always told myself, like when I was like a little kid, I was like, I can't do a PhD. It's too much work. I can't do it. Oh my God, I'm so scared. And the older I got, I feel like the closer I've gotten to him, even as he hasn't been in my life for the past 11 years. And I realized, like, oh yeah, I am my father's daughter. Like, I'm absolutely going to be going down the same path that he went down. If everyone watching this gave the minimum, which I'm pretty sure is like $5, I would be at my goal. If maybe you put that into perspective, I know times are tough, things are hard, the price of eggs is skyrocketing. So if you cannot afford to donate, or if you're not interested in it, I completely understand that. Watching this video is great support. Also, if you feel so compelled to share the link, I would really appreciate that. I also always have my Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App linked in my little like help me pay for college thing in the description down below and in my top comment. So those will all be like very easy for you to find. Thanks so much, Fascinator. Really appreciate you. If the lighting is kind of weird in this, I broke my light again. So I'm using my like daylight lamp, and it's just like very cool and very aggressive on my face. Summer House is a Bravo show that started in 2017. It was built around a group of young white, honestly, professionals living in New York City who during the summertime drive up to the Hamptons and stay in a share house. This is like a big phenomenon amongst young professionals in New York City. There was later a spinoff called Summer House Martha's Vineyard, which was basically like the black version of Summer House. That only lasted 2 seasons before it was put on indefinite hiatus, but which is kind of a primer for some of the dynamics that we're going to be talking about soon. But the show was built around this initial group of young professionals. We have the, I guess you could say, leader of the flagship, Kyle Cook. And I'm only going to really talk about the people who are still on the show from this first season right now. I do have a video coming up where I'm going to break down all 10 seasons of Summer House and the scandal in context, and that will be more about like the scandal in the world of the show Summer House, but this is like about the scandal in the world that we live in and what we can learn about from it, basically. Kyle Cook is like kind of the leader of the pack. He's the one who rents the summer house every year, and he brings along a bunch of his friends, including Lindsay Hubbard, who is my queen, my mother Hubbard, and Carl Radke, who is, during the earlier seasons of Summer House, kind of like a stoner F-boy burnout who is really struggling to feel like he deserves any of the things that he is getting in this life. He, over the course of the show, struggles with different forms of substance use and family tragedies, and it's interesting to watch how he evolves over the course of the show. But like the Carl that we meet at the beginning of the show is very different to the Carl who is taking up space on the show in season 10. But the Kyle that we meet at the beginning of the show is basically more or less the same as the Kyle that we meet in season 10. It's a similar thing with Lindsay too. They have like gone on these, Lindsay and Carl have both gone on these like growth journeys that Kyle has grown and changed as time has passed, but not as drastically or dramatically as Lindsay and Carl seem to have. In season 1, Kyle is starting to invite this girl over to the house. That girl's name is Amanda Batula. If that name is familiar to you, if you've heard it in the ether like I had for so many years, that's because she is from this show and she is Kyle's girlfriend. Well, really, booty call to girlfriend to wife. Amanda and Kyle start dating officially sometime in between summer of 2016 when the first season of the show is filmed and summer of 2017 when the second season of the show is filmed. I think it's like fall 2016. Season 2 comes and they're in a full-blown relationship. But from the moment that they start dating officially, the relationship is tumultuous because Kyle basically wants to keep doing the same thing that he's been doing the entire time, which is going out and partying every weekend, drinking to excess, drinking until he literally like cannot control what he's saying, who he's saying it to, what's going on with his body. And Amanda wants him to, now that they're together and in a committed relationship, go sit down somewhere and calm down. And he's not going to do that because that's not who he is as a person. But she's basically expecting him to become a completely different person. So they have a lot of fights about the fact that Kyle still wants to go out, he still wants to party, and he still kind of has this expectation that Amanda will just take care of him when he does that. It's clear that the relationship is not great. He's always yelling at her, basically, and she's always saying to him, like, can you be nicer to me? She's very whiny. Her voice is just whiny. It's not like necessarily that the things that she's saying are whiny, but she kind of talks like this. Kyle, can you be nice to me? Like, it's like in the back of her throat and very high pitched. I don't like it. They continue on in this way. Season 3, we find out that Kyle has cheated on Amanda. He cheated on her at some point before season 3 started filming. It was very hard for her, but she accepted it. She said, I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to move on. But you see that she's not over it. She has not forgiven him, and she is not, in fact, moving on, which is, like, fair because you got cheated on. He seems to want her to, like, because she said she would forgive him and stay with him, let it go completely and forget about it. And she's like, no, this still hurts me. Like, I'm still holding on to this. I'm still going to tell you how much it upsets me. By the end of season 3, so beginning of season 3, this cheating scandal comes out. Well, really, honestly, beginning of season 3, we learned that Kyle cheated on Amanda. Then middle of season 3, we learned that he might have cheated on her again. By the end of season 3, he's proposed to Amanda. If you are as skeptical just hearing this as I was upon watching it, I would say that you're right, because when we see what progresses after season 3, he should have kept that ring. He should have kept that ring. He should have kept the money for that ceremony. The fact that their wedding was scheduled for the 25th of September 2020 and that date did not end up being able to be kept, that should have been a sign. They get married, I think, in September of 2021. And then what follows is several years of an incredibly tumultuous relationship that is littered with cheating rumors, as it had been in the past. Amanda's frustration at Kyle's refusal to change, as it had been in the past. Kyle's continual emotional and honestly like verbal abuse of Amanda. He's always like yelling at her, screaming at her, calling her names, belittling her, all of these things. And Amanda's clear and ever-growing disdain for Carl. And that is the flagship. That is the central relationship of the show. They are the couple. So every year they get to have the master bedroom, which is the nicest bedroom in the summer house that they're staying in. They are at the top of the food chain in this friend group because they are first in a monogamous relationship and then engaged and then married. And that is the goal that basically everyone in this summer house has. They all eventually want to have what Amanda and Kyle have, but probably just like a better version of it. Over the course of the seasons of Summer House, like the cast changes, there's ups and downs, back and forth, different people are being added. And in season 5, the first Black cast member is added. She's not the first woman of color to be on the show, but she is the first Black person to be on Summer House, and her name is Sierra. She comes in as a guest of this guy named Luke, who Amanda absolutely hates. Again, we're going to talk about that more when I break down the entire show. But she is basically like hooking up with Luke. They are like trying to build something, and she is immediately pitted against a housemate who has been in the house for the past 3 seasons named Hannah Berner, who is a comedian. Again, if you've heard the name in the zeitgeist, there's a reason. There's like kind of some shadiness and some lies told to her about the relationship that Luke had with Hannah versus like when the relationship started with Sierra. And so over the course of season 5, her and Hannah uncover that shadiness, and instead of like fighting over the guy, they end up becoming friends, which is like the best case scenario. Then we're going, and I'm just like speeding through this timeline so we can get to all the key players. Then we go to season 8. Season 8, we are introduced to West Wilson. West Wilson is a former football player at the University of Montana. He was not very good. And when he joined Summer House, he was, I think, unemployed, but he knew Lindsay through like a friend of a friend. And I think he had interned at a company where one of her friends works. And anyway, she invited him to the show to like join the Summer House. Because by season 8, I didn't say this at the beginning, but like when the show started, Lindsay, Carl, and Kyle were all like, Lindsay was 27 or 28, I think. Carl was like 31 or 32, and Kyle, I think, was 33. So they were all older, basically. And now by season 8, we're 8 years on from that first season. Lindsay's in her mid-30s. I think that's the season where she's pregnant. That's the season right after her engagement fails. Like something's going on with her. Lindsay's in her mid-30s. Kyle and Carl are now in their early 40s. And so it's and Amanda is just starting her 30s, I think. She's like 31, 32. It's kind of like that first batch of castmates from Summer House are slightly aging out of what the show is, which is like these young professionals going to these houses every weekend. And now they're like middle-aged people who are going to these houses every weekend. You know, I can't even cross my legs for as long as I used to be able to when I was younger. Like they fall asleep and it takes so long to get the sensation back in them. I can't imagine trying to do a bender every weekend at the age of 43. Like, I don't even want to try. Maybe your body's like built up a tolerance to it over time if you spend a super long time, if you spend every weekend of your life basically from the age of 16 on doing benders. It is reasonable that they're going to want to start to introduce new blood. And there's some characters on the show who are already young. There's Paige DeSorbo. She's the other half of the Giggly Squad. There's Sierra. By season 8, Sierra, I think, is 20. So they bring in the younger people to basically like take over from Kyle, Carl, and Lindsay and kind of like ingratiate themselves in the house and start the next generation so that the show can continue to have longevity. During his first season, West goes after Sierra hard. They have their, like, he's calling her his girlfriend. He takes her home to meet his family. They go to a family wedding together. He is, like, trying to be with her, basically, because she's told him very explicitly, Sierra, I don't want to just, like, be a booty call. I don't want to do anything casual, because Sierra had seasons prior been in kind of this casual relationship with this guy named Austin, who's on Southern Charm, I think. He's hideous to me. That man is so ugly. Like, he's difficult for me to look at personally. But Austin never took her seriously. Like, she was kind of doing it as, like, maybe we could do, like, friends to lovers or, like, hookups to lovers, kind of like what happened with with Amanda and Kyle, but he was never going to take her seriously. He, at a certain point, calls her a Jezebel, which is like a racist term for overly sexualized Black women who seduce white men. And, like, whether he knew that or not, that's still, like, a very fun thing to call someone. Like, that's not, in what world would that be flattering, first of all? And second of all, it's weird. So that relationship has no legs. Like, it's never going to go anywhere. And she kind of got played by him on national TV. So she's very upfront with West. She's like, I like you a lot, but I don't want to be someone's booty call again. I don't want to like get played by another white guy. I just want, because that was a big thing for her. Like, not even just that she got played by Austin and he was white. It's just like, she's so beautiful and he's so not. It is shocking that he was allowed to enter her, but I'm gonna digress. So she's like, I am dating very intentionally. I am dating to marry. I don't want to just be a booty call, so I'm not going to sleep with you all summer. Like, I'm not sleeping with you. If you want to have a relationship, we can keep talking. If you don't want to have a relationship, we can dead it right now. That's okay. He's telling her the whole summer, no, yeah, like, I'm getting to know you so we can build something. We can be, like, in a romantic relationship later. Like, that's what I want. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Let's do this. Mind you, this summer it happens before he is announced as a main cast member. She's like, okay, great. The whole summer he's wooing her. He knows that she wants to be in a relationship. At the end of the summer, she gives him an out. She says, I know you might have just been doing that for a storyline. I understand, like, it's hard out here being on reality TV. If you don't want to be together, if you don't want to be in a relationship, you don't want to progress this, that's fine. But I don't want to hook up without a relationship. He's like, no, yeah, let's do it. Let's date. Let's get together. Like, let's do this. You will be my girlfriend. She's like, okay, great. So they start dating. Like I said, brings her to the family wedding. She goes with him to visit his family. She meets his parents. She's like with him in Montana because he has family in Montana or whatever. It's all hunky-dory. They're together basically from like the end of summer through whenever he gets announced as a new cast member. So I think like 6 or 7 months. And then once he gets announced as a new cast member and the promos start coming out and the first episodes of the show start coming out, the show airs between like February. It's filmed summer of the previous year and then it airs between February and May of the following year. He tells Sierra that he can't be in a serious relationship anymore. He's like, I'm not ready for a commitment. I can't be in a serious relationship with you. I gotta go. She reasonably feels played. He got what he wanted from her. He got to have his storyline established on his first season of the show. He got to sleep with her, and now he gets to get off scot-free. I think she would have been able to get over that if he hadn't done the New York Times article. He does an interview in the New York Times, his first season of Summer House, where he basically says that he doesn't like Sierra. They're just not each other's person. He had to break up with her because he didn't want to be in a relationship because he wanted to talk to all of the girls who were in his DMs. And he doubles down and reiterates this at the reunion. And Sierra is like crying, talking to him about how she feels like he played her over the summer. And this is his first reunion on the show. And he kind of has to like reckon with the fact that she feels like he played her. And then he did this New York Times interview. And he looks very bad by the end of his first season. Like, he's playing the character of this charming, kind, socially and racially conscious guy who's super into Sierra and really excited to be in a relationship with her. And the people who were in the know about the show, like, followed them over that, like, fall and winter that they were dating and, like, saw pictures of them at this family wedding and her with his family, and it really seemed like they were like building something that would last. And then he dropped her like a hot potato and then went in the New York Times and basically said that he didn't like her and he never liked her and she wasn't hit for him, and then doubled down at the reunion when he wasn't just like mumbling through his teeth and his like stupid fucking mustache. So that was like a kind of major level scandal that happened in 2023. Scandal is the only word that I can use for it. I don't think it's quite like accurate, but I remember that really like breaking through the zeitgeist in 2023, and like Sierra was then on The Traitors. She started to be seen more and like be known more outside of people who were fans of Bravo and fans of Summer House, because she was the woman scorned. And there were a lot of people who were like, the relationship was never serious. She just needs to get over it. Like, he didn't owe her anything. He didn't owe her loyalty. He didn't even owe her the kindness of like not shit on her in a New York Times interview and basically implying that she's undesirable. But by and large, I feel like people came out on Sierra's side and thought that West was evil, which is honestly, like, for me, I mean, you know me. That's the only way that I can see it. That's the only lens that I can see it, is that this is an evil man. Because to lie to a woman, to get her in bed, and to use her for a storyline so you can secure your place on your first season of the show. And then the fact that he thought that going to the New York Times and saying in the article that he didn't want to be with her in more explicit terms than he ever communicated to her was going to be the solution that would make her feel better about the whole situation. And then he was genuinely genuinely baffled that she was upset that he did that at the reunion. He was like, what was I supposed to do? Like, I don't understand. I had to explain where I was coming from, and so I did. He's shown since that he's clearly very obsessed with his perception and how he's seen. And for a man who's so obsessed with his perception, he sure does not think at all about how his actions are going to reflect on the other people around him. He's literally only thinking about what to do, say, and be so that people will like him. And what's ended up happening? We all hate him. So I think the part of the thing that was so devastating for Sierra is that she's clearly had very strong feelings for him, and she had developed strong feelings for him because he entered into this relationship under a false premise. She let her guard down and allowed herself to get very close to him and attached to him because she thought that it was a serious relationship that could potentially lead to marriage. Meanwhile, he knew the entire time that nothing about this was serious, and he was just using her for a storyline, and that he was going to drop her if and when he popped off in the zeitgeist like he expected that he would. She was never given the opportunity to engage in the relationship on the same terms that West was engaging in the relationship, so she never knew that she should have protected herself from him and not gotten too attached to him. So when people say that they don't understand why everyone's so upset about the summer house scandal because West and Sierra were never that serious, or West and Sierra were never together, I have to think that you don't consider Sierra's feelings as something that matter. At the beginning of the summer in season 10, she's still very guarded and still like sniping at him and kind of being like a little mean to him because that's what she did in season 9 after she basically like read him the riot act and told him how much he hurt her. The season 9 reunion, I think he told her he apologized to her finally for the New York Times article because he was like, there was another character who had gone to the press and said negative things about West in the press. And he said, well, when it happened to me, I finally understood why that was so devastating to you. And for some reason, instead of hearing that as it was, which is that this is a selfish man who is incapable of feeling empathy for people unless he's been in the exact precise same situation as them, otherwise he completely disregards it and thinks that he can do whatever he wants. Instead of hearing it as him saying that, she heard it as him saying, I finally understand that what I did to you was wrong. Which we can get into Sierra and the blind spots that I think that she has a little bit later. That, for me, was the first red flag. They get into the house season 10, and West clearly wants to be back in Sierra's good graces. She is stonewalling, basically. She's not, like, giving him anything back until about halfway through the summer. Halfway through the summer, they start to kind of talk a little bit more. And I think really what happened in season 10 is that he realized that the only way that he could signal to Sierra that would make her want to forgive him is if he signaled to her that he was still interested in her and that he still wanted to date her, because that was the core of the wound. The core of the wound was not being wanted by this guy who she had clearly grown to like love very deeply. And she says a couple of times over the course of season 10, like she loves him, she loved him whenever they were together. So he's trying with the friend thing with her, and that's not working. And because he is a chameleon and a manipulator with absolutely no backbone and no sense of self outside of how he wants to be perceived by others, he's like, well, because the friend thing isn't working, let me try flirting with her again and see if that works. And that's what she finally starts to respond to. Do I think there's some self-esteem issues there, that she was responding to flirtation from this man who horribly humiliated her, made her feel bad, and traumatized her racially? Yes. I think there's also, like, along with the self-esteem and stuff, there's also this just, like, really strong desire to love and be loved. And I think he hurt her, and it hurt so bad because she still loved him. So he starts flirting with her again. She starts responding positively to the flirting. And he realizes this is my ticket to mending things with her, because it's clear that his goal this season is to get Sierra to forgive him for everything that happened 2 years prior and to basically like get back on her good side so that he can hopefully get back on the audience's good side. I feel like that ulterior motive is very obvious, even without this scandal happening. It's
heavily teased in the teaser trailer that comes out for this season, that Sierra and West are like toying with getting back together. So it's also like a really good storyline for him, as it was the first time around. Kind of like he starts flirting with her. He's like laying his head on her shoulder. He's like putting his hand in her lap, moving close to her when they're all sitting in a big circle. And so then the next week, there is a situation where like, sure, they're like outside around the pool. He starts making out with this girl right next to her, and it really hurts her feelings. She gets up and walks away. And then he tries to play it off and say like, oh, I didn't even know she was next to me. But I knew that he knew he was next to her, because right before he started making out with the girl, he said, I kind of used to date that girl next to you. So it's like, you knew that she was there. But he says that, and she is like, yeah, this is the problem that I've always had with you, which is that you don't see me. Like, I could be right next to you and you literally would not see me. He sees you, girl. He just doesn't care. That's the thing. So they have this conversation. He apologizes to her. He apologizes is actually not very accurate to what happened. She decides like she's going to be the bigger person. She's going to go over to him. She's been cold towards him the entire summer. And she basically like instigates this conversation by saying like, you shouldn't have to feel like you can't make out with a girl just because I'm there. Like, it's not, we haven't been together for 2 years. I don't like continuing to harbor this resentment towards you. So I just want to dead it. So do you want to like go out, get coffee? We can talk about it. And I can just like leave this behind once and for all. So they go out one day before everyone else. They have coffee, and I keep wanting to say he apologizes. He apologizes in the way that he always apologizes, which is very high-minded, intellectual, and not at all rooted in like true remorse. He says, I understand that what I did was wrong and I apologize. However, there is no like remorse, regret towards what he did and how he made her feel. He's trying to like explain where he's coming from. And then he basically slips up and admits that he has been harboring resentment towards her in the years since he kind of like fell out of favor with majority of the audience for how he treated Sierra. That's his own dumbass fault. He thought that he could play her like he played every girl that he's ever come across. He didn't realize that she was America's sweetheart, probably because she's Black. Yes, I'm going to make it about race. He was absolutely gobsmacked. The majority of the audience was really mad at him about what happened. So she doesn't hear any of that. Like, that's the thing. If West doesn't see her, she does not hear him when he speaks to her a lot of the time. What he's saying is he resents her, and he wants her to forgive him so he can stop resenting her, which is not how apologies work. You want someone to forgive you because you did something bad to them and you feel bad about causing them pain, and you don't want them to feel that pain anymore. Not because you did something bad to them, you got in trouble for it, and now everyone is mad at you because you got in trouble for it. So she's like, can we go back to being best friends? Which is like, oh, this is too fast. And then over the course of the last couple of episodes of the season, they are flirting even heavier, and then they start going out on double dates. They make out, and he like brings her into his room. He's making out with her. They're like telling each other, I love you. It's all very heading towards a relationship, obviously. And if we didn't know what we knew when that episode aired, then people probably would have been cheering for it. When the teaser trailer came out and they started hinting that Sierra and West might be getting back together, people were pretty excited because it was clear that that was what she wanted. That was what would make her happy, because she really loved him. The unfortunate thing is that she really loved him. And what I'm about to explain is the reason that we're all here today, basically. So remember that they spent the entire summer of 2025 flirting. He was basically trying to woo her again. There are moments on screen where he tells other people that he's not trying to be in a relationship. He knows he can't give her what she wants, all of this. So like, he's basically asking other people to tell her that he doesn't want to be in a relationship with her, but he never says that to her, right? So he's going into it with that mindset, but she's likely going into it thinking that they're going to get back together. They finish filming at the end of summer 2025. We're flipping back to Amanda and Kyle. January of 2026, Amanda and Kyle announced that they have separated. Yes, January 19th of 2025, Amanda and Kyle put a statement up on Instagram announcing that they've separated. It doesn't come as a surprise to anyone. They've been in a horrible relationship for nearly 10 years at this point. over 10 years, honestly, at this point. You see over the course of this season the deterioration of their marriage. He is yelling at her just as much. He's going out just as much. She says in the trailer for season 10 that he slept over at a fan's house. We later find out that he was sleeping at a fan's house, and it was a party, basically. There was just like a bunch of people over there. He fell asleep on a couch, and then he woke up and he went home like in the middle of the night. But the way that she puts it, he slept over at a fan's house, makes it seem like he was sleeping with the fan and slept at their house. Their relationship has fallen apart, and they've decided that they're going to call it quits. Amanda begins to have a renaissance. She begins to get the Ariana Madix treatment. She is a woman who was in a bad relationship for several years, a relationship that she seemed committed to despite her friends and honestly family saying, this is not the place where you need to be. You deserve so much better than this. And she held on to it for reasons that were not discernible to the rest of the audience. And then finally, she, as we think, gained the strength to leave him. That's January 19th. She has a Marie Claire cover spread where she talks about the divorce, and she explicitly says that she would not have been able to get through summer 2025 when her marriage was dissolving without Sierra. She says that she moved out in November. They had intended to like date each other, and he was going to try and woo her. And they were going to try and get back to the place that they were in 10 years ago, but they were not in a good place 10 years ago. So getting back to that place would be like traveling through different levels of hell. Like there's no, it's not, it might be different, but it's not better. But that ended up falling apart, and they realized finally that they just weren't going to work, and then they split amicably. February of 2026, really honestly late January of 2026, there start to be rumblings of something going on between Amanda and West. Amanda married to Kyle, who is one of West's best friends, and West, the ex of Sierra, the girl who Amanda said helped her get through the summer. She would not have been able to get through the summer without Sierra. There's rumblings that there's something going on between the two of them. They've been seen out at bars in the West Village, partying together a lot. They seem to be acting in a romantic manner. And there's all of this like information that's kind of leaking out onto TikTok, onto threads, like blind items through Demois, that maybe there is like a relationship building there. They both ignore the rumors for a long time, but people are still really suspicious about it. She's seen out wearing his clothes. She's wearing his hat at one point. She's wearing one of his sweatshirts at one point. It's like over the course of late January, early February, the snowball is really like turning into an avalanche. And then by March, the rumors are so loud that they are impossible to ignore. The second to last week of March, West goes on Watch What Happens Live, and Andy Cohen asks him point blank, is something going on between you and Amanda? And West says, obviously that's a very important person to me. She's getting divorced. She's single for the first time in 10 years. I'm showing her the streets, but that's a friend. We're just friends. Amanda has been responding to comments that people are leaving on her Instagram saying, of course she'd never be with West. They're only friends. Like he's like a brother to her. And she's like, thank you. At a certain point, she had said like she would never date another person in the Bravo sphere. She would never date another guy on Summer House because they're like her little brothers. Andy asked her, like, is that something you'd be interested in? She said, ew, no, all of these things. They are adamantly denying this connection all the way up and through March 24th. March 31st. So color everyone surprised when on March 31st, they drop a bombshell statement. This goes up on both of their Instagrams sometime on the 31st of March. We've seen the growing online speculation, so while this is still very new, we wanted to provide some clarity. It was never our intention to purposely hide anything, given the complicated relationship dynamics involved and the scrutiny that comes with being on a reality show. We needed a little space to process things privately before speaking on it. We've shown up for each other as friends over the years through all the highs and lows, and what's developed recently was the last thing either of us expected. Our connection grew out of a genuine, long-standing friendship, which made it especially important for us to approach this with care. As our feelings evolved, we wanted to take time to understand exactly what we were feeling. We also recognize that this has had an impact beyond just us and never wanted our actions to cause any harm or be perceived as careless. We truly appreciate the understanding and respect as we navigate this. Mind you, this is her second public statement announcing her relationship status with a man in one quarter in 2026. January 19th, her divorce statement comes out. March 31st, her statement that she's dating her ex-husband's best friend and her best friend's ex-boyfriend comes out. Diabolical. Pick me is inadequate. for whatever this woman is. The internet has been bubbling with these rumors for weeks at this point. There's even a blind item going back all the way to June 2025, which I remember because I was reading the blinds back then. And it said something about like the seasonal co-star is cheating on her spouse, basically. And so there's been suspicion that Amanda is stepping out on the marriage for a long time, but genuinely no one, including all of her cast members, expected that it would be with West. Now, I'm not saying that it was with West, if that June 2025 blind was true. Allegedly, for entertainment purposes only. But this is crazy. Like, this exploded in the zeitgeist, in part because these are the least likely people to do this. It's very similar to Scandoval in that sense of like, Sandoval was in a relationship with Ariana, and Raquel was in this very committed relationship with James Kennedy for years. And like, no one expected that Raquel of all people would be the one to sleep with Sandoval while he was still with Ariana. Maybe it would have been less surprising if it was Sheena, if Sheena had been single. Because Sheena, no shade, but she do be doing shit like that. Like, started the show as a mistress. It would be less surprising if it had been Sheena. Genuinely, like, it was crazy that Amanda, who is one of Sierra's best friends and had been one of Sierra's best friends for a long time, would do this to Sierra. I think it was less crazy that West, who was one of Kyle's best friends, would do this to Kyle, because honestly, like, people felt and still continue to feel, by and large, little sympathy for Kyle because of how bad of a husband and partner he is documented as being over the course of his 10-year relationship with Amanda. He is so mean, not only to her, but to her friends, to, like, anyone around him who upsets him while he's, like, on whatever substances he's on over the course of the summer. And it's clear that they, like, don't have good communication. It was a bad marriage. Like, no one's saying that she was in this dream marriage that has now just been, like, busted up by this horrible scandal. But that also doesn't mean that you get to do whatever you want. That's the scandal if you didn't know what was going on with it. If you'd been hearing about Summer House and didn't understand what was happening and why everyone was so upset, it's because Amanda was best friends with Sierra and West was best friends with Kyle, and they ended those respective relationships and then got together, knowing that that would upset both of their respective exes. Also, West was seeing a bunch of girls when him and Amanda were starting whatever they were starting. A lot of girls came out after he dropped this statement, including a woman named Mija, who is from, I think she lives in Montana, or they met in college or something, who said that she was West's exclusive girlfriend, not just when him and Amanda started dating, but from like February of 2025. So the entire summer that West was like flirting with and wooing Sierra, he had an exclusive girlfriend who was at his house during the week while he was at the summer house on the weekends, and who had slept over at his place the night before he went on Watch What Happens Live to deny that him and Amanda were in a relationship. And then a week after that sleepover, he sends her a text message saying this isn't working. And then the next day he drops this statement. Like, that's diabolical behavior. Not to mention, and the key part for me in all of this that made me like put together all of the dots, like, I don't know, I'm seeing a GIF in my head, but I can't describe it. It literally made all of the dots come together for me, is this talk that Sierra had with the two other Black cast members and the rest of the cast of Summer House at the dinner table. She got very candid. This was before her and West reconciled over the summer. So I think this was something that was probably very important for her to get off of her chest before she could even entertain forgiving him. It was important for her to know that he had heard that and received it well before she could even like think about being friends with him, being in a relationship again, whatever. And they give this very candid talk about the difficulties of being Black on reality TV and how they are judged differently and treated differently. And KJ has talked about how KJ is a new cast member on the show this season who West brought on, actually. He's the first Black man on the show. And he starts dating this white girl. He talks about how his anxiety has gotten a lot worse. He's been having panic attacks because he's so anxious about representing his community well on the show and not being like negatively judged. Mia, who is the another Black woman who's joined the show in season 10, talks about very similar things. And Sierra is able to say once and for all, like, that she's received a lot of racial hate from dating white men on this show and being played by these white men on this show. And she kind of talks about the trauma and the fallout of being the first and only Black person on the show for a while, but also a Black woman whose storyline a lot of the time was that she was good enough for these white men to sleep with, but not good enough for them to get into a formal relationship with. And everyone says that they received this really well. Everyone's very supportive. Kyle starts crying. Kyle is like he's so like emotionally locked in on Sierra. They're great friends. I don't ever want them to be in a relationship because while I think she would dog walk him in a way that Amanda was never prepared to, I think she deserves better than a guy who would scream at his wife on national television and call her a fucking stupid bitch and not understand why that's wrong just because he didn't mean for anyone to hear it. But Kyle starts crying. Amanda gets up and like goes over and hugs her. West talks to her later and he's like, I feel like I finally understand. And like everyone receives this moment very well. And then West and Amanda do this anyway. And I want to go a little bit more into and like talk about why I'm thinking about this situation so deeply and what I think is the proof for the really like considered statements that I'm making about this whole thing. Because do you want to know what? I anticipate that there's going to be a lot of people who either watch this or maybe they hear about this and they think to themselves, it's not that deep. Why is this lady so obsessed with this? Why is she making it such a big deal? And to that I say, I like to think. Like, this is what I was trained in. I went to college and I got an English degree, and people always told me the English degree was going to be useless. But here I am now, yapping on the internet and taking things that I'm interested in and turning them into analytical frames to understand the world that we live in. Almost like that's what I got my degree in. I'm using it. It wasn't useless. The other thing is, like, I'm trained beyond like me having the English degree and me getting a history master's and a history PhD very soon, inshallah. I am also trained in like social justice work and basically like trying to understand why we live in the shithole ass world that we live in and how we can get out of it. And if I can see the mundane ways that these power structures play out in everyday life, then we can pull the veil back and we can actively fight against them and not allow these processes to happen to us. They happen through us. It is like almost 11 p.m. I'm so tired. I've been filming for like 5 hours at this point. I'm going to take a quick break and then I'm going to be back with the reunion discussion and talking more about what happened over the course of the reunion and why it failed, basically, and why I think the powers that be never expected it to succeed. I'm very sad and annoyed that we got 3 parts of a reunion focused almost entirely on Westmanda and the fallout of them getting together, and they contributed literally nothing. They may as well have been 2 ventriloquist dummies that were being puppeted by Jim Henson and friends, because that is how much we learned about this whole situation from them. I wanted to do this video and go through everyone's performance, but there's not really much to say about everyone because we didn't really get to talk about everyone because we were focused on Westmanda. And Westmanda, they are such like nasty, boring, narcissistic people. And I say narcissistic in the adjective form, not trying to diagnose them with anything. Because you do all of this, okay? You break up a friend group, you potentially destroy the future of a show that's been on TV for 10 years and endanger the future of its spinoff that has barely even gotten its legs. Everything, the focus is 100% on you. We're talking to you. We want to hear from you. And you have the audacity to show up so tranked out, so zanned out, that you can barely even form a coherent sentence beyond, I hear you, I apologize, and I have a lot to think about. So you finally got what you wanted, which is that it's all about you, Amanda and West. These are two people who, in all of my time watching them on reality TV, it's obvious to me that all they want is for everyone to pay attention to them all the time. Amanda wanted it to be the Amanda show, and West wanted it to be the West show. This is all you wanted this entire time of you being on TV. 10 years for Amanda, 3 years for West. You finally get it, and you give literally nothing. Less than nothing. Absolutely fucking useless. Useless people. Even if Summer House gets canceled after next season, even if In the City gets canceled, even if any number of things happen, they know that they will still have access to jobs at Bravo, because I'm certain production has made them feel like we don't have a problem with this. Everyone else is overreacting. You guys are fine. Just go out there, show up, sit in the seat, do whatever you want, and we'll be fine. So why would I tell the truth if there's nothing at stake for me in telling the truth? They're not thinking in terms of like what would be best for the group and what would be most helpful for the people who they have hurt, because they didn't give a fuck about it when they started talking. So why would they care now that these people are sitting in front of them at this reunion and asking them questions? From the beginning of the reunion, we know that West and Amanda are not serious about this because they come in and they think it's going to be okay. We know that there is no real connection between what they have done and the impact it has caused on the people that they claim to love and care about. They're sitting in that room being interviewed by Andy, and he asks them what they're looking to get out of the day. And they say, we really just want to like take accountability for what we did and show Kyle and Sierra that like this wasn't malicious. It was just like us basically figuring out our feelings for one another, right? In the pre-reunion interviews, when Amanda was talking about what she hoped to get out of the day, she's like, I just want to clarify the timeline and make sure that everyone knows that this was not a thing that we were plotting. Her primary concern is people knowing that she's not a cheater. And based off of how she responded to Andy's initial question, and also what he said to her when she got out on the stage, she wants to make sure that Kyle and Sierra are not mad at her. West's primary concern, I'm pretty sure, is that the audience doesn't hate him. Or at least if the audience doesn't hate him so much that we will boycott things that he's a part of. So from the beginning, we see they're not taking this very seriously. Andy can see that because he's clearly annoyed when he's interviewing them. But he's like, okay, I guess we're going to go and do this. And from the beginning, we can also see the profound impact that them getting together in the way that they got together has had on the cast. Andy's going around and asking everyone on the couch, what do you want to get out of this? How do you feel tonight? Everyone is clearly uncomfortable. There is a very heavy sense in the beginning of this reunion. But before we even get to the couches, the reunion purposefully starts on March 31st, the day that Amanda and West released their statement. Lindsay is doing her In the City interview, her like confessional. Kyle comes into the room. He's like, did you see the news? He shows her the statement. He asked her to read it to him because he can't even read it himself. Like, he's so sick to his stomach about it. They read the statement. As soon as they finish, the phone calls start flooding in. Mia calls them. Carl calls them. KJ calls them. Jesse calls. Like, they're all on the phone together talking about what's going on and how much this is affecting them. This clearly has had a profound impact on everyone outside of just Kyle, Sierra, West, and Amanda. So we see how big of a deal it was that these two people decided to get together. Again, for the people who want to strip the whole scenario of the nuance and context and want to say, oh, well, it's just two people sleeping together. Oh, well, it's just two people in a relationship. The context is what makes the impact of their choice to sleep together and their choice to get into a relationship something that would cause this amount of a ripple effect. West had racially traumatized Sierra prior to him getting with Amanda. She talks at length about how she thinks people see her as a good time girl. Everyone just wants to experience her. No one wants to take her seriously for a relationship. She's been consistently played by white men on TV and treated like she is not relationship material, even though she knows that she is. And this has caused a profound sense of a profound impact on her sense of self-worth. And West did that to her. West, who was someone who she would have called her best friend prior to them even getting into a physical or romantic relationship. And he chose to do that to her because he chose to lie about her lied to her about his intentions time and time again. Are we kind of seeing? And then beyond that, you have to think about everyone in their friend group that Amanda and West chose to lie to consistently for at the very least a month and a half, because Sierra was kind of sniffing it out starting in January. But like for a month and a half, every time someone asked them, are you guys growing feelings for one another? Do you guys think that you're going to end up in a relationship? They would say, no, that's crazy. Why would you think that? Can you imagine if you asked your friend a question and every day for a month and a half, or every time you asked them for a month and a half, they lied to you about what the answer was? And then finally, when there was irrefutable proof that it was a lie, they decided to come clean. How do you think that would affect your ability to trust someone? So we go into the reunion understanding two things. One, this relationship has had a profound impact on the dynamics of the friendship group and on the emotional well-being of each member of the friendship group. And two, West and Amanda do not understand that impact, and they do not seem interested in understanding that impact. They're canned answers about how they want to take accountability. Taking accountability would require being sorry, and they're not going to do that. They don't feel sorry. Well, at least Amanda's happy that she got her man, and West is happy that he's off the hook and he no longer is going to be tied to Sierra's reputation. The first question Andy asks, once we've gotten into the actual reunion, he asks Sierra, when did you start to have suspicions about Amanda and West? And Amanda is ready. She is ready to combat whatever Sierra says to her, because they cut to her reacting to Sierra speaking and she is nodding. She's shaking her head. She's like making faces, whatever. My theory is that she had not been tranked out enough to be like non-responsive at this point in the reunion, and that's why she's so combative. She genuinely sees herself as being entitled to be in this relationship regardless of the consequences and regardless of the fallout. Sierra says that her initial suspicion was on January 17th. January 17th, she called Amanda. She saw that Amanda's location was at West's house, which probably wasn't weird because Amanda and West are friends, right? But she called her and she didn't pick up. And Amanda starts shaking her head when Sierra says she didn't pick up. And she's like, I called you in 30 minutes. What does you calling me 30 minutes later have to do with the fact that you did not pick up the phone when I said that you didn't pick up the phone? So she's immediately trying to cast Sierra as a liar when she's the only person who is a liar. Like, why would that even be the rebuttal that came to her mind, is I called you within 30 minutes? Because you didn't pick up the phone. And that's why she was suspicious. And then Sierra says, the only reason that you called me 30 minutes later is because Mia put us all in a group chat to see if you would answer. And then you finally did answer. So when it was another person who her reputation was at stake in front of, then she wanted to answer the phone. But because it was just Sierra, she didn't seem to have any accountability towards Sierra. Throughout this reunion, you get to see, like, front row, how much disdain Amanda really has for Sierra. In the last part, less so, because I think she had taken her second dose of Xanax or whatever she was taking by the time, like, after they went to lunch. So she's just completely gone in the last part of the reunion. But throughout these first two parts, the way that she's coming at Sierra is almost like Sierra is the one in the wrong. Sierra is the one who is hurting Amanda by calling out Amanda's ability to be in this relationship with West and acting as though Sierra would have any type of right to be hurt by the fact that Amanda is dating West, just because Sierra and West used to hook up, and Amanda knows that West racially traumatized Sierra and broke her heart multiple times. And she spent so much of the summer crying in Amanda's bed about how hurt she was, about how West was treating her. Like, just because this man treated you badly, why does that mean that I'm not allowed to date him? You could say that about a stranger, but this is supposed to be your best friend. Oh, okay. From that moment, I knew she hated this woman, because her further justification is, of course I was at West's house. West was there for me over the summer. And Sierra rightfully says, well, where was I? You were in my bed. And I was the one holding you, and you were sobbing in my arms. Meanwhile, like, what were you doing with West? Keg stands? Telling him to watch your ass while you walked away? Like, Sierra was the one who carried the emotional weight of Amanda leaving her marriage, and honestly, who ended up being the scapegoat for Amanda leaving her marriage. She's like, well, Ciara told me it was time for me to move out, so that's why I decided I was going to move out. Well, Ciara was like, maybe we should separate for a period of time. I hadn't been thinking of it, but like she said it. But West is the one who was there for her all summer. And he's the one for whom she can say, oh, of course I was spending time with him because he was there for me all summer. Within the first 20 minutes of at least the uncensored portion of this reunion, Amanda is rolling her eyes at Ciara. She's yelling at her. She's telling her, no, you're wrong. You just don't understand. She tells her to f*** off and rolls her eyes at her within 20 minutes of this reunion starting. And I said, oh, I know what we're in for. I know exactly what's going to happen. And I know exactly what type of mindset both her and West came to this reunion with. Meanwhile, what is West doing while Amanda is talking this whole time? Nothing. He is saying nothing. And I'm sure he convinced her that it was her idea for him to stay quiet while she defended them, because he's like, well, you know, every time I try and speak at other reunions, people always get mad at me. So she's like, yeah, of course, like I'll take the brunt of it. Like you don't have to, because it's like, as a woman, why are you defending a man? Okay. This is when we talk about the leaks, because most of the leaks that came out were from the first part of the reunion. And in this first part of the reunion, we get to see what they kept and what they cut out because we have the leaked audio. So this is when Amanda is trying to she's talking about the statement. She's trying to justify the route that she decided to go down with the statement. And Ciara is talking back to her and saying, this statement is bullshit because you knew who you were going to hurt in the process of being in this relationship. And you're doing it anyway. You're actively doing it right now. In this moment, everyone is kind of like coming at Amanda and West because they're trying to be like, we're just little babies. Like we didn't understand what was going to happen. Like we talked about it. We knew that it was probably going to be a big deal, but like we didn't understand how big of a deal it was going to be. And everyone is like, okay, but you're still doing it. Like you're still together. So what do you mean you didn't understand how big of a deal it was going to be? This is the crucial part that told me exactly who Amanda was. And that kind of helped to like shape so much of this thought process that I've been having with this whole situation. Remember I talked about the episode where Ciara was talking so openly and candidly about dating interracially and how being played by white men on reality TV has really caused her a lot of harm, like emotionally and mentally. During that time when she's talking about that, she has a whole statement where she says she's talking about the impact of being played by West, by Austin, by Luke. And she says, you can't help who you're attracted to. You can't help who you like. And what she means when she's saying that is that you can't help if you like people who are Black, white, Latino, Asian, Indigenous American, like whatever race they might be. Okay. In this moment, in the leaked audio, you hear Ciara is like, okay, but you guys had thought about it enough and thought about how fucked up it was, but you still chose to do it and you're still doing it right now. And Amanda's response to that is, well, guess what, Ciara? You can't help who you're attracted to. And Ciara says, well, actually, you can. When you're married, you can. And they cut out the part where Amanda's response is, not according to you, not according to your words. The most charitable view of what Amanda is saying in this moment is that she thinks this is apples to apples. Like, this is the same situation. She was just in a situation where she like couldn't help who she was attracted to, just like Ciara was in a situation where she couldn't help who she was attracted to, and she just had to go for it, you know, regardless of what the impact was going to be. She just had to go for it and do her like eat, pray, love type thing. That's the most charitable view, is that she doesn't see the way that race impacts the whole thing, which it even still is racist. Not seeing the way that race impacts a situation is because you benefit from not seeing the way that race impacts a situation. Whether you are white, Black, Asian, whatever. That's one way to go with it. The other way is she was taking Ciara's words about being racially traumatized by the man who she is currently at the very least, in a full relationship with at the very most, and throwing them back in her face as a justification for why she has the right to fuck this man who traumatized her friend. That is so callous and cruel. Like, that is evil behavior. Evil behavior. To my best friend, I would not treat them like this. If this was my worst enemy, sure. But my best friend, someone who confided in me, who gave me the gift of their love, their care, their attention, and their secrets, their feelings, their thoughts, their emotions. I'm going to take those gifts that that person gave me and throw them back in their face as justification for why I am allowed to hurt them. The only way that someone would do that is if they were genuinely an evil person. I'm not doing like, oh, she doesn't know better. Oh, she's just like doing her. No, I think she's an evil person. I've been watching Summer House from the beginning, and like you see moments throughout the show where Amanda is really reveling in cruelty that is enacted towards other people. When Jules was getting bullied all summer, she was having a great time. Like that season, she had such a great time that season. That's because everyone had a punching bag who they could all collectively like go up against, and everyone was doing it as often as they possibly could. There's moments where like Lindsay is in an embarrassing situation, or when one of the Workus sisters was in an embarrassing situation, and you could see Amanda's little like smirk come out. She was so excited whenever someone was getting called out or whenever someone was being like put in a negative light or being treated badly by the group. She is a person who reveled in cruelty, and that is what that statement tells me. And I'm so glad we had the leaked audio, because if we didn't have the leaked audio, there would not be that evidence of how genuinely cruel of a person this woman is. After she says that to Sierra, after she throws her words back in her face, she is adamant of, I wasn't married anymore, Sierra. Okay, so even if we're going to be like super progressive, super open-minded and accept like, yeah, they were separated, they weren't married anymore, whatever. We're not going to go the route of like playing semantics and saying, oh, you guys were legally married, that makes it still wrong. Why are you so angry that someone is pointing out that you might have had a duty of care to the man who you used to be married to not fuck one of his close friends, as opposed to what you're doing now, which is treating him like he means nothing to you and fucking one of his close friends? Mind you, the man was a bad husband, so she could just say that. She could just say, Kyle didn't respect me a single time in the marriage. He yelled at me all the time. He cheated on me. There were constantly rumors about him. I asked him for very simple things and he never gave them to me. And so, yeah, why aren't I going to his close friend? I don't care about that. Then just say that. If you want to do something villainous, stand 10 toes down in it. The problem that I have is that she wants to have her cake and eat it too. She wants to be able to say, I have a right to do this bad thing that I'm doing, not just I'm doing it because it's something that I want to do. So what do we get next? We get Sierra pulling the receipts out. She pulls out her text thread with Amanda, where Amanda deliberately lied to her multiple times, apropos of nothing. Amanda could literally have just stopped talking to Sierra, and that would have been weird, and that would have confirmed to Sierra exactly what she thought was going on. But she didn't do that. She chose to gaslight her, make her feel like she was crazy, and lie to her face by texting her out of the blue. The internet is on one right now. I can't believe I even have to send you this text message. I just want you to know there's nothing going on between me and West. Like, it is absolutely a moot point. Like, there's nothing happening. Sierra didn't ask her a question, she didn't bring any suspicions to her. Amanda just decided to text her that. So Sierra's response to that is, I feel like that's a very crazy rumor to be going around for there to be absolutely no truth to it. So like, to be 100% clear, nothing's going to come out. There's no pictures of you kissing. There's no video. There's nothing. Like, there's nothing that there's no feelings that you guys have for each other. And Amanda says to that, correct. This is 2-3 weeks before she released that statement with West. Like, she initiated this conversation. She chose to lie to Sierra. For what, except that she revels in cruelty. And she wanted to be cruel to this person who has done nothing but support her. I've talked about how, like, in other videos, how Amanda's schema for support and friendship does not look the same as other people's. Like, she doesn't want her friends to ever call her out. She wants her friends to allow her to live in a world of delusion and do whatever she wants to do, even if it's bad for her. And Sierra's not that type of friend, because Sierra is a real bitch and she's going to tell you what it really is. So I have videos about that. You can go watch those. But that is like what Amanda is doing to Sierra in this moment. She is targeting her in a very cruel way by choosing to text her out of nowhere just to lie to her about something that she knows that she is actively doing. Why? I think because she never saw Sierra as one of her friends, because Sierra does not play into her delusions of grandeur. So Sierra's in the middle of reading this text thread, and West and Amanda are chiming in. Oh, this wasn't some sex scandal. Oh, I wasn't having an affair, Amanda says multiple times. I wasn't married when any of this happened. We waited until after all of this. They claim, so their timeline, let me tell you what their timeline is. They claim that they expressed feelings sometime in February. Whether it was before Valentine's Day or not, we don't know, because apparently West sent Miha flowers on Valentine's Day. The girl who had at that point for a full year thought they were in an exclusive monogamous relationship. He had sent her flowers on Valentine's Day. So they expressed feelings sometime in February. The rumors start to ramp up in March, and through February and March, they're just like hanging out and kissing sometimes and holding hands. And then they kissed for the first time sometime in early March, which would mean it was sometime around when Amanda decided to text Sierra and lie to her for no reason. She had already kissed Wes. They had already expressed their feelings to each other. Okay. And then they claim that they don't have sex until after the statement was released on March 31st. This is why people don't buy this timeline, but they're going to stick to it because, like I said, they lose everything by telling the truth. Amanda loses her sense of self as, I'm not a cheater, I didn't have an affair. Like, that's Kyle's identity in the relationship, and she is the victim of all of that. If she admits that she cheated, at the very least had an emotional affair, if not physical affairs with other people, then she loses that victim stance that she has been able to hold on to. And I believe that someone like this can cheat on their spouse and justify it in their mind and say that they're not a cheater because they're living in some alternate reality where the marriage was already over, the bedroom was, he doesn't like me, I haven't had feelings for him for years, so I'm not a cheater in my mind. But when it comes to other people, they know other people are not living in that same world with them. So they have to maintain the fiction for those other people. They have to say, no, I'm not a cheater because I did not step out on my marriage, so that the other people will like continue to uphold this sense of self that they have and this sense of like moral superiority that they have at being like someone who didn't cheat on their partner like the partner like Kyle did. So telling the truth, she loses the ability to wield that like victim flag that she's been wielding basically her and Kyle's entire relationship, which isn't to say that she was not actually victimized in that situation, but it is to say that it is also a useful tool to have in her arsenal when she is trying to build in a self-identity for other people to view her. West doesn't really lose anything because we don't really think anything about him. Like, no one has a positive view of West. We were like getting towards that and then he had to blow it all up. Like, there's nothing that West can really lose, but Amanda will lose a lot of her reputation if she admits that she allegedly, for entertainment purposes only, actually did have an affair on Kyle. So they gain everything by lying and they lose everything by telling the truth. And that's why I think they're sticking to this March 31st timeline, even though it doesn't make any sense that they would release a statement, blow up the friendship dynamics of the entire show, which is a show that is based around friendship dynamics of people, in order to support and allow themselves to go out to West Village bars and continue to figure out what they've got going on. Like, it would make more sense if they were in a full-blown relationship and they released that statement, but no, they're trying to say, we were still trying to figure out how we felt about each other. We hadn't even slept together until April, basically. We just decided to come out about all of this because all of the rumors got so loud that we couldn't continue to ignore them. What? That's why I wish that they had talked about the video more in the reunion. It's touched on here and there, and we hear about it in the leaks, but it doesn't really come up in what aired for the reunion. But there was a video that someone took of West and Amanda, apparently, in a very intimate situation. And Sierra saw it before anyone else. And that's what confirmed for her that West and Amanda were seriously a thing. And so the claim that West and Amanda make initially is that the reason they put the statement out is because someone threatened to release the video if they did not say that they were together, or they wanted to get ahead of the release of the video or whatever. I don't condone people being filmed without their consent, especially if they're in intimate situations. I don't care about like the morals of whatever this is. You should not film people without their consent in intimate situations and then threaten to release the video. Like, that's not, we don't have to belabor the point, but that is the supposed justification for why they released the statement. So you want me to believe that you were in an intimate enough situation for it to have been filmed and threatening to both of your reputations if you didn't get ahead of the story, but you hadn't had sex yet? It's all, nothing that they're saying is adding up and nothing that they're saying makes sense, but it doesn't have to make sense because there was never going to be any pushback. There was probably pushback, but what we saw, like as the audience, we were never going to receive any narrative about this whole thing that was actually clarifying. We were always going to leave dissatisfied because they were committed to lying from the beginning. They were committed to lying and giving canned responses and saying whatever they had to say to like get through the day so that they could come out on the other side and do what they're doing now, which is going to bars and recording podcasts and running around Midtown with Kyle and whatever. So this is still in part 1 of the reunion, right? Amanda is essentially arguing for her right to be in this relationship with West, this incredibly hurtful and destabilizing relationship with West. She literally says to everyone, am I not allowed to pursue something that I feel strongly about? And everyone is like, yeah, because you don't live in a bubble, you don't live in a vacuum, and your actions will have consequences on the other people around you. Now, if this was a random who she met somewhere and she was like, I really like this guy and everyone was mad at her for dating him, okay, then that would be crazy. But there is a context to West's role in this group and her relationships with other people in the group. You guys know this. This is also kind of like a sneak peek for what I'm going to talk about later about the role that I think that like individualism and liberalism play in this whole thing, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. At the end of episode 1, they kind of circle back around to the Sierra and West of it all. They spend some time like talking about the other things. Like they're talking about, that's when Bailey has her little moment with Ben. That's when KJ talks a little bit about what he's been going through. And then at the end, they circle back around to Sierra and West and what we saw of their relationship over the summer. And West doubles down on his claim that he was never trying to start something back up with Sierra. He says, I was very clear that I knew that I couldn't give her what she wanted, and I said, I'm not trying to be a boyfriend. The obvious rebuttal to that is that 1, he said that to Ben, not Sierra, and 2, his actions were portraying the exact opposite thing. So if the only person who had that information was not the person to whom it was relevant, and if the way that he was acting with the person to whom it was relevant was the opposite of what he expressed himself as wanting and feeling, why would she have known that he didn't want to get back with her? So they very rightfully like call him out on all of these things that he was doing over the course of the summer. And Kyle kind of says like, it feels like you were breadcrumbing not just Sierra, but the audience to try and like build up a storyline for this season about you and Sierra getting back together, because he's putting his head on her shoulder. He's putting his hand on her lap. He's moving closer to her. He's holding hands with her. He's telling Ben that what they had was so beautiful and magical. He's saying basically like, I miss what we had. I wish we could get back to that. What they had was a relationship. Like they were friends for 3 months in that summer, but they were always flirting together. It wasn't that they were ever like primarily friends. And so that's kind of why for me, like when Sierra said, can we go back to being best friends? It was hard for me because I knew, even if she didn't necessarily know, that what she was asking in that moment was, can we get back to the place where we were 2 or 3 summers ago, where we were building a relationship with one another that was eventually going to end up being romantic? Because they were never just friends. You know, it was never just casual. People say that like Sierra was inappropriate with Jesse and she had this very like flirtatious relationship with Jesse. That has been the characteristic of her friendship with both of these guys at the same time. It's just that West is the one who decided to pursue her romantically as opposed to Jesse. He could have taken that moment or any other moment over the course of the summer to say, yes, I would like to be friends with you, but please know I don't want anything romantic. It was lovely being your boyfriend a couple of years ago, and I know that I fucked that up and I didn't cherish you and I didn't do anything that you deserved to have done to you, but I don't want to go back to that place. I just want to be friends. And then she can make the decision from an informed place. But instead of saying that, it's because he wants to be able to have access to anyone romantically that he wants to have access to at any moment in time. He wants everyone to be in love with him, and he wants to have his pick of all of the people. And if you turn off that faucet or that level of access, he's going to freak out. This is also where I say that I think part of his motivation in going after Sierra romantically again this season was because he didn't want Jesse to get with her. He solely wanted to block Jesse from being able to be with Sierra because he knew in his mind, like bro code, if Jesse decides to date Sierra, I will no longer have access to her. She will no longer be like down bad for me and thinking about me and wanting me. So I have to stop this from happening. I also think that West has a huge inferiority complex when it comes to Jesse. We know many things about West. You know, he's not the most handsome. He's not the smartest. He's not the most interesting. He's really kind of nothing as a person. The one thing that he has up on these other guys is that he knows exactly how to appear as non-threatening and meek as possible to get women to trust him long enough for him to fuck them over. And that is his skill. We call it charm, but it's actually something a lot more sinister, in my opinion. Guys like this, guys who know that they are, at the end of the day, weaklings, especially white men who know that they are, at the end of the day, weaklings, and they don't really have anything going for them. Instead of, you know, learning a skill, going to school, going to therapy, taking up Dungeons and Dragons, like instead of doing any of that could actually be productive in their life, they decide that what they're going to do is become the most charming man alive and be the person who is able to get whatever they want from the people around them. West sees Jesse as like the epitome of like manhood because Jesse is handsome and charming. Jesse is good at music. He's creative. And he's like building his profile slowly in the same way that West is building his profile. But Jesse has actual talent to back it up. West just has the personality. The personality flopped immediately because it was exposed as a facade as soon as he fucked over Sierra. And that's why he's so mad at her, honestly, because like she took away the one thing that he had going for him in the public eye. And now he has to burn it all down, in my opinion. So I think the reason he refused to be clear with Sierra is because he didn't want Jesse to get with her, because that would be another thing that Jesse has over him. Yeah, so if Sierra is a Libra rising, Jesse would be a much better partner for her. Like, Jesse makes so much more sense for Sierra than West ever did. But because Jesse leads with the fuckboy, she, like any rational woman, would be like, this guy is a boy, I can't trust him. So instead she goes for his non-threatening friend. But the truth is, the non-threatening friend is always the more evil one. That's just always the way that it is. So they're going through West's behavior this season and saying, you did all of this stuff, and then you made out with her the last day, had her up in your room, you were telling her you loved her, all of this stuff. Why would she not think that you wanted to get back in a relationship with her? And he says, oh, well, I had a conversation with her after summer and blah, 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 whatever. She was still having sleepovers at his house this year, the 2026 year. She said, I was sleeping over at his house in the fall. We had 2 sleepovers. Did they have sex? No, but they might have done other stuff. We realized watching this, like after the 3rd part, because Amanda finally admits in part 3 that she never finished watching the season because she was like, oh, it's just so stressful for me. It's your job. But we're going to get there. She didn't know any of this. She didn't know that they had made out the last day of summer. She didn't know that him and Sierra were talking about starting their relationship back up. She didn't know that Sierra was having sleepovers with West that were of a romantic nature. She didn't know any of this. So this is all absolutely news to her. Lindsay then starts, and this is like the topper on the end of the episode, is that Lindsay is talking about how she thinks West is like an excellent con man. And she's like, you just love to use women to raise your profile, because he used Lindsay to get on the show. He used Sierra to stay on the show. And now they're saying he's using Amanda to his own ends. In my personal opinion, I think he's using her to destroy his reputation so that he can wipe the slate clean and he can basically come back like Sandoval did as the ultimate Bravo villain. And he no longer has to worry about everyone expecting him to be this good guy, because he clearly cannot play the role in public long enough to sustain a full lifelong career. But basically, like, he's using Amanda. The problem that I have throughout the reunion is that the way that Lindsay and Kyle come at Amanda during this reunion and come at West is very much absolving Amanda of all responsibility and putting it all on West. Like, West basically plotted to force Amanda into this scenario, or tricked her into this scenario. We know that he's a liar. We know that he's a cheater. We know that he'll do anything for fame and clout, allegedly. So that would make sense, right? But in stripping Amanda of this agency, they are infantilizing her and basically making her someone who was a victim at the mercy of West, as opposed to what she is, which is an active participant in this relationship and a perpetrator herself. She is just as responsible for causing harm to this entire friend group, to Kyle, to Sierra, potentially getting this show taken off of air, as West is. He didn't just like come in to blow the whole thing up. She made active choices along with him. She didn't give a fuck about her relationship with Sierra. That did not stop her. That did not give her pause for even 1 second when she was considering this relationship with West. Because if it had, she wouldn't have done it. And that's the thing that is continually coming to me when I'm listening to West and Amanda apologize, is you can't apologize and say that you're sorry because you did it and you're still doing it. You had the opportunity to not do it. You had the opportunity to separate and say it was a mistake and you didn't mean it and you feel horrible about it and you're now ready to face the consequences for it. You're in this relationship now. So how sorry can you be if you chose to be in the relationship and are still in the relationship and now are refusing to accept the consequences for you being in the relationship that you knew was going to blow up the whole friend group? At the beginning of the next episode, at the end of this episode, is when Sierra gives her speech about how Amanda is weak and meek and she might be the perfect woman for West. And honestly, this is the final kindness that Sierra gives to Amanda. People said that this speech was mean, it was too much, because Amanda starts tearing up after. First of all, why should Sierra be nice to Amanda? Amanda has shown that she does not give a about Sierra time and time again during this whole situation. So why would Sierra worry about Amanda's feelings? And second, the way that like relationships and friendships work amongst white women and Black women is so different. And I'm going to talk about it more when I talk about when I do my video breaking down all 10 seasons of Summer House. But like I remember I was watching season 4 and that's when I realized like, oh, this is just how they conduct relationships. Like, you know how they sometimes will like make jokes that are not jokes, that are just like thinly veiled insults? I was watching Summer House season 4 and I was like, oh, this is just how they like off gas their emotions. Like they'll just like make snippy, snide remarks towards their friends. And it's like all of these people are in a room. From an outside observer who did not grow up in that culture, you would be like, do these people fucking hate each other? But like these are their best friends in the entire world and the closest people to them. But these are also the people that they will throw under the bus for the prize of male attention. If your friend says something to you that is unkind in the moment, but is meant from a place of love and from a desire for you to be a better person, that is considered to be worse than constantly like undercutting your friends in like a joking way that is thinly veiled. That's why I say that is Sierra's final kindness to Amanda, because that is her opportunity to wake up and realize this is what the fuck you look like. You are leaning into your absolute worst fear. Your fear is that you are an idiot, that you let men run you, that you are weak and meek, and all you exist for is to stand behind a man and prop him up while you are being basically like shunned you don't get to touch any of the sun. You are just like existing to support this man. If that's your worst fear, and one of your closest friends who knows that that is your worst fear is telling you that the manner in which you are behaving is now manifesting it so that you look like that is who you are, wouldn't you think that you should just stop doing what you're doing? But she won't, because as much as she's afraid of being that person, she's also obsessed with what she gets from being that person. So in part 2, they touch a little bit on Jesse's like little flirtationship with Sierra, and Andy basically asks him like what part of it was serious, like how much were these like deep feelings that you had, and he's saying like, yeah, I did have strong feelings for her. I really liked her, and that's why I asked West if it would be okay for us to make out. I just feel bad about the way I approached it, because like it turned her off immediately because he approached it like it was something that was just like fun and not serious, when really he meant it from like a serious standpoint. He was like, he was thinking to himself, I would really like to see where this relationship would go. But she was insulted because she was like, guys, there's all these guys asking me to hook up. None of these guys asked me out to go to dinner or whatever. They then talk about West, and I just so you know, I'm skipping over all of the parts that are not related to this whole scandal. They talk about West defending Amanda at the Freedom Dinner, and I don't personally want to play into the conspiracy theories about Amanda basically egging Kyle on to attack her, if only because I know that that is a constant libel against victims in emotionally abusive relationships. A lot of the time there is reactive abuse and like reactive ways in which they will like instigate problems because of the constant like emotional stress that is being put on them. I'm not going to live in a world where Amanda is just this like big mastermind who has been like puppeteering and actually she's been the abuser this whole time, because I don't like that personally. I do know that there's a way that people who have been victims of abuse, instead of going after the person who actually hurt them, will find someone who is weaker than them and has less power than them, the victim, I mean, to take their frustration and anger out on instead of that person, because they still see that person as having so much power that they then have to find someone to replace that person in their mind. I feel like I see Amanda doing that a lot with Kyle and Sierra. Instead of yelling at Kyle and cursing at Kyle and being angry at Kyle, she's yelling at Sierra. Kyle will say something and then Sierra chimes in, and Amanda is responding calmly to Kyle. She's like, no, that's not what happened. I didn't do that, blah, blah, blah. And then whenever Sierra speaks up, she's like, no, shut up. Don't say that. That's not true. Like, she immediately gets activated as soon as Sierra chimes in to a situation. And I think it's because Sierra is the person with less power than she has. Sierra is the Black woman, Amanda is a white woman, and Kyle is a white man, and also the person who was abusing her verbally and emotionally, I think. So it's safe for her to yell at Sierra. It's safe for her to be angry at Sierra. It's easy for Sierra to become the villain in her story because Sierra has less power than her, as opposed to Kyle, who she still sees as like having some level of power over her and having some right to control her life. It's kind of, if you think about it in the sense of like when woman is in an abusive relationship, and instead of being mad at and fighting with the partner who is like physically abusing her, she then starts to physically abuse children. It's because that they are the only people who it's safe for her to take that anger out on. And I'm not saying it's right. I don't think that it is, but that is kind of the dynamic that I'm seeing. Even like my support for that, like the reason that I know this to be true is because of all of the ways throughout that Amanda minimizes how Sierra was defending her over the course of the summer, and gives West so many props for defending her over the course of the summer. West did less than Sierra did and has done less than Sierra has done throughout the show. But West is worthy enough to abandon her relationship with Sierra, whereas Sierra is not worthy enough to stop herself from, what did she say? Pursuing something that she feels strongly about, because West is a man doing it and Sierra is a woman doing it. And she doesn't value women and men in the same way. She does literally say that. She says, the girls have supported me throughout my relationship with Kyle, but it felt different for a man to go after him and defend me than it did for these girls to do it. But the thing is, she's not fucking Carl. Like, she didn't tell Carl thank you, because Carl was the one who got into the near physical altercation with Kyle over how Kyle was talking to Amanda. But what she is talking about is that, like, I guess, like, West signaled to her that he was interested in her by defending her against Kyle. And she probably knows that Carl would never go there. That is what made it even more significant. She was like, oh my God, he must be in love with me because he's willing to put himself at risk in this way. Carl isn't really putting himself at risk because Carl's never going to leave the show. He's best friends with Kyle. Like, it's always going to be Kyle and Carl, regardless of what happens between like Kyle and Amanda. But with West, he could get kicked off, he could get fired, he could lose his source of income. So him choosing to put himself on the line by defending her must mean that he has very strong feelings about her. And then this is when we get into the conversation about Amanda seemingly changing overnight. Like, she claimed for years that she hated that Kyle went out and stayed out late and he was always out and partying on the streets. But everyone is like, West does that all the time, so what changed? She admits that she just didn't like going out with Kyle because she's out with West every other night. It's not that she doesn't like going out, it's that she didn't like going out with Kyle. And I think there's a way in which that is fair, because when you are going out with someone and they're getting so drunk and on whatever substances, you have to like take their shoes off and undress them and get them in the bed and they're like screaming at you the entire time. I also would not like to go out with that person. But I think she's making a false equivalence in her head, or a false justification in her head. Because the thing is, she excuses West's behavior because, one, he's never been belligerent towards her when he's drunk. It's the same way that he's never used her and thrown her away like a rag when he is done with her in a relationship. That's part of the justification for his behavior. But it's also that he's allowed to go out and do whatever he wants and sleep with whoever he wants and make out with whoever he wants because he's single. And he doesn't have any duty to her. But Kyle was not allowed to do that because he wasn't single and he did have a duty to her. All of her justifications for West and like why West's behavior is okay and different from Kyle's behavior actually doesn't make sense, because this is a pattern of behavior with him. Yeah, he was single when he was doing it. You thought he was single. He acted like he was single, but there were people out there who thought that they were in relationships with him. Meanwhile, now she's the one who thinks that she's in a monogamous relationship with him. So what if he's still going out? What if he's still at the bars? What if he's still drinking and doing bumps and making out with girls? Does that make it bad now that they're in a monogamous relationship? And wouldn't you have been able to anticipate that he would be doing that because that's what he was doing when he was in his monogamous relationship with someone else? We then get into like the timeline of when Kyle and Amanda officially broke up. Kyle says that he found out that the relationship was done when she sent him that statement. And she was basically pushing him to put the statement out as soon as possible. And he thinks that she wanted to put out the separation statement quickly because she wanted to go fuck West. And that's probably what a lot of people think. And honestly, like, given the timeline that they gave, they claim that they didn't sleep together and they didn't admit feelings until like February. I don't think that's true. I think as soon as she was ready to put that statement out, it was because she wanted to be able to say with a clean conscience, I never cheated on my husband. I might have grown feelings for other people. I might have had like emotional affairs, but I never allowed a P to enter my V while I was married. And then she wanted to go get this P in her V. And that's why they had to put the statement out so quickly. And that's what Kyle is continually alluding to over the course of the episode. But they are adamant, no, we didn't do this. I'm not a cheater. I didn't do that. Part of me wants to believe Amanda when she says that she's not a cheater. But there's just so much like contradictory evidence, and also the fact that she's a liar, that makes me go, no, I think you are, though. I think you are. Genuinely, the only reason to like push to get the statement out so quickly would be so that she could go fuck West, because, and she also says that she told Bravo PR that their marriage was over before she told Kyle. Like, Kyle found out on January 18th, the day before the statement was put out. Bravo PR found out on January 2nd, the day after New Year's Day. There's just a level of like cruelty and callousness that she's okay with treating Kyle with now that she no longer needs his validation romantically, that I find to be very dark. It's like people only mean something to her if they can give her validation, and if they can't, or if they're going to get in the way of her receiving validation, then they don't exist. And she should not cater her behavior to accommodate them in any type of way. The end of the episode, they go to lunch. And during lunch, Amanda is bitching to West about how everyone is coming at her. She's basically mad that this is the reunion where she's the villain instead of it being the reunion where Kyle is the villain. And she can finally put all the spotlight on all of his bad behavior throughout the course of their marriage. They had some conversation during the reunion about how evil Kyle was to her in the marriage, but it wasn't enough for her, honestly. She's like, he just gets to sit up there and cry. Meanwhile, he's not accepting the fact that he cheated on me first. He's out dating and making out with people too, and no one's mad at him. And we were miserable in our relationship, but he gets to cry and be the victim, implicit. Meanwhile, I have to be the villain because I'm making out with someone and I have a boyfriend now. She's also like upset that people are making her feel stupid for trusting West. And it's clear to me that she still does not get it. Like, you don't at all understand why anyone would be upset at you about what you have done. She doesn't understand why Sierra would be mad at her. She doesn't understand why Lindsay would be mad at her for jeopardizing the future of the show. She doesn't understand why Carl would be mad at her for breaking Kyle's heart. She doesn't understand why Jesse would be mad at her or upset at West for lying to them. Like, she doesn't understand what was wrong about anything that she has done, because I think in her mind she really just reduces it down to, I had feelings for someone, so of course I went after them. That's what you do when you have feelings for people. She doesn't understand why people would be more mad at her for having done this to Sierra than they would be happy for her that she got one over on Kyle and started dating and got a new boyfriend before he was able to get a new girlfriend. She genuinely thought that people were going to be happy for her about that, regardless of who the person was. And they probably would have been if the person was not West. Part 3 of the reunion, Amanda has clearly re-upped on her drinks because she is absolutely deadpan. There is no emotional access to anything. Her face is blank. She's got the Homer Simpson eyes going full tilt, allegedly for entertainment purposes only. She's not emotionally responding to anything anymore. Like, basically West told her during the break to like calm down a little and not be so combative with people. And I think she was like, okay, let me pop another half of a Xanny and see where we go from this. Again, allegedly for entertainment purposes only. We are finally having people say with unequivocally, is the timeline that you gave us the truth? Kyle says, I'm going to ask you this once and I'm not going to ask you again. Did you guys hook up at all before when you said that you hooked up? And both West and Amanda say no. And their party line is, we're still trying to figure out what we want to be. We don't know if we're going to be official yet. Which is why Sierra is so mad, because it's like, you risked all of this. You risked my feelings. You risked Kyle's feelings. I know Amanda doesn't give a about Kyle's feelings, but West, allegedly being his friend, was supposed to. You risked the future of these shows by completely changing the dynamic of this friend group for something that you're still figuring out. Why do you think that you have the right to do that? That is a very important question. And why are you getting mad at us for telling us that you don't have the right to do that? So Mia is great in this part because she's very clear to lead them to the most incriminating possible answers. She asks, if there hadn't been any speculation, would you have just kept lying to us? And Amanda says, yes, it was the speculation that made us come out with it. So then Mia asks the important follow-up question, which is, this didn't have anything to do with the potential harm that it would cause Sierra. You didn't decide to stop lying so you could stop hurting your friend, basically. You decided to stop lying because you were afraid that you were going to get caught, or that you had been caught, and you had like almost figured out what you wanted to do with this relationship. And what that shows us is that they didn't think about Sierra. They didn't care about how this would impact Sierra at all. Again, Kyle was a bad husband. We can have space in our hearts for Amanda trying to get her lick back against him. Sure, a lot of people probably would. But Sierra never did anything to her. Sierra never yelled at her. She never did anything to Amanda that would warrant this level of betrayal. And to know that it wasn't even a thought in Amanda's mind, at least, how this would impact Sierra. She was just worried about the public perception, about whether or not West was dating Miha, about whether or not she could like jump from her marriage into this full-blown relationship with this man boy. All of that was what she was thinking about. She wasn't thinking about Sierra at all. West also finally is forced to admit during this part that Miha did not know that he was seeing other people. She basically thought they were in an exclusive relationship, and he didn't tell her that he was out here fucking anything that breathes. So he lied consistently for months to a girl who thought that she was his girlfriend for a full year and some change. And that's the man that Amanda basically blew up her career for. What's important to Kyle in this moment is pointing out how fucked up West is. Kyle is still operating from this place of Amanda being a victim of West, just like Sierra was, just like Miha was, all of these things. So he wants to make it clear, not just to Amanda, but also to Amanda's family who might be watching at home. They're not watching it. If she didn't watch, why the fuck would they watch? But he wants them to know this guy had a girlfriend this whole time, even while he was wooing your daughter and while he was tricking our good friend. This is a bad guy. You need to get her away from him. The thing that he's not accepting is that Amanda is right where she wants to be. She's not one of West's victims, as I've said. They were colluding. They did it together. And Sierra calls out rightfully, like, they were in a full relationship. He was saying, I love you to Miha. They were boyfriend and girlfriend. He's a bad person. Oh, okay. So I don't have time. One of the other things that really frustrates me about Kyle's response to this whole thing is that it's clear that he's still in love with Amanda, or at the very least has enough love for her that it's hard for him to admit, like I said, that she chose to be with West. She chose to hurt his feelings like this. She actually probably is reveling in the fact that Kyle's feelings are hurt by who her new boyfriend is, and she still gets to get access to Kyle, and Kyle is still like feeling protective of her. Because he goes on a little speech. He says, I spent 10 years building this career for both of us, building this brand for both of us, getting her on this show, keeping her on the show, getting her brand deals, getting her to work harder, because he talks a lot about how lazy she is. Like he's thinking to himself probably that she would not have any of the stuff that she had if he hadn't helped her. But he's not saying it in a malicious way. He's saying that's how I decided to take care of my wife. That's the love that I showed for her. He couldn't be kind. He couldn't give her a house in the suburbs. He couldn't stay at home. He couldn't stop getting blackout drunk. But he chose to show love for her by establishing a financial foundation for her and giving her a brand and a career to jump off of when they ever broke up. So he says to West, what is your plan for Amanda? What is your plan? Because I entered into my relationship knowing that I was going to care for her in this way. Are you considering things like that? And what I want to kind of point out is this continued narrative of infantilization of Amanda, of Lindsay saying that West is going to do bad things to her. He's going to hurt her just like he hurt Sierra and Miha. Of Kyle saying that West doesn't care about her. He doesn't have a plan for her. It's that kind of intrinsic thing that exists in the way that we operate in relationships. In the West, at the very least, but probably in other places too, of like you hand the woman from the father to the husband. The father is responsible for her care and keeping when she is a child, and then the husband is responsible for her care and keeping once she reaches sexual maturity. In order to be a good husband, you have to be able to provide for your wife. Kyle provided for her in the sense of he didn't necessarily have like the most money. Like he didn't have the strongest like household foundation that he was going to build for her. I felt a spider crawling up my leg, and I didn't like that. He didn't have the strongest like household foundation that he was going to build for her. He wasn't going to move out to the suburbs with her. Like he just wasn't going to do that. But he gave her all of this, which is this TV show. He gave her the brand that is Amanda Batula. Amanda Batula Swim would not exist if he had not decided to wife her when he did. And that was his method of caring for her, because that's the way that Kyle approaches the world. He is very much a pull yourself up by your bootstraps type of person. So he probably would have done a lot better in a relationship with someone like Sierra, who wants to build something for herself, who wants to work for the things that she has, as opposed to someone like Amanda. And that's not me saying that I want him to get with Sierra. I think Sierra deserves way better than Kyle Cook. So he didn't think like, I'm going to pay your way and that's how I'm going to provide for you. And that's probably what she expected from a partner, right? He thought, I'm going to give you the opportunity to make something of yourself, and that's how I'm going to provide for you. His gripe with West, as much as it is that he like stole his girl and betrayed him and hurt Sierra too, his gripe with all of that is the emotions, yes, but also the fact that West didn't have the foresight to at least come up with a plan and think and stop himself from doing this, knowing that it would probably negatively impact this career that Amanda and Kyle have spent a decade building for her. And that, again, takes a lot of Amanda's own agency out of this, because she didn't give a fuck about the career. She didn't want Kyle to give her a career. She wanted Kyle to give her babies and a house in the suburbs and to go sit down somewhere and stop getting drunk every weekend. She wanted Kyle to basically become a completely different person than who he was when she met him. And he didn't want to do that. If West is telling her that he's going to become a completely different person than he was when she met him, and that's what he's willing to give her, then of course she would take that readily and willingly, because that's all she ever wanted from Kyle, was to abandon himself in order to show her how much he loved her. Instead, he gave her he gave her something that it lasts a lot longer than love, which is a multi-million-dollar career opportunity. And like I said, he couldn't show up as a husband, but he did show up in that one way. And it's frustrating to him how short-sighted West was in the pursuit of this relationship with Amanda. After all of these questions, they're going into the Instagram breadcrumbing of it all. And Amanda tries to say, I wasn't breadcrumbing on Instagram purposefully. I was just posting trending songs, whatever, girl. We know who this person is. She genuinely thinks that we're going to buy and believe that she wasn't posting Homewrecker and Somber and Back to Friends and and that West wasn't posting my best friend's ex on purpose. The problem that they're having is they feel like they were laughing in everyone's face as well as lying to them, which is just so why would we believe that you weren't doing this thing that's comparatively not that bad when you were doing something much worse? And you won't even apologize for the thing that was much worse that you were doing. And again, they keep talking like they didn't have any agency in the situation. West is this got so out of my control, and I wish I had had the opportunity to speak to you before all of this. And it's you did. Or you could have just not done it. You have free will, and you can choose to do something that will be right and not something that will be wrong. So Sierra calls out the Instagram breadcrumbing, and Amanda again gets activated and is we weren't breadcrumbing on Instagram. I'm just posting trending songs, be my own boyfriend, crushing. Okay, bye, love you. It's just I'm not spending 5 minutes speaking a song. She's posting 20 picture carousels that are clearly carefully curated, and she wants us to think that the song choice is incidental when all the pictures in it are this weird breadcrumbing of she's got this new guy in her life and she's seeing someone else. Miss me with that. They've lied enough already, right? This is the part that honestly genuinely enraged me in the reunion. Andy asked Amanda, were you ever really friends with Sierra, or was it just an alliance for the show, basically? And Amanda is no, there was real friendship there, of course. It would be insensitive and insane if I said anything else. Which is you're not speaking from how you actually feel. You're speaking from what other people are going to think of you if they hear you say something. And then Andy asks her directly, he's was it hard for you to watch this season and all of the moments this season where Sierra is standing up for you and protecting you and speaking life into you, and not think about what you were doing to her by being with West? And this is when Amanda admits that she didn't watch the season. She didn't even do her job. Your job is to watch this season of television in preparation for this reunion so that you remember everything that happened, so that you know what they put in the show and what they cut out of the show, and so that you are prepared to respond to questions when you are asked them. She didn't even do the easiest, most basic part of the job. You gotta sit down and watch shit. And she didn't even do that. But she put that ass bun in her hair before she got on that stage. Oh. And everyone is rightfully annoyed at her. They're what the fuck? We all had to watch this shit. Why do you get to come to this reunion stage, be mad at us for bringing up things that you said and did over the course of the summer when you probably don't even remember doing that shit? You didn't watch yourself do it. And her excuse is, oh, it would have just been too hard to watch myself, knowing that how everyone's going to misconstrue everything and the narrative that's going to go around about my behavior and it's just so easy to read into everything now. At no point did she come to this reunion expecting to have to actually face herself and what she had chosen to do to the people that she claimed to care about. That was never the plan, because if that had been the plan, she would have watched those episodes and she would have been able to sit through the pain that is knowing how much her friends loved her, knowing how much Sierra and Mia loved her, and knowing that she chose to abandon that love and friendship in favor of that limp dick Bilbo Baggins looking motherfucker. No shade to Bilbo Baggins. Love him down. She's such a fundamentally selfish person. And spoiler alert, Sierra had a Harper's Bazaar interview after the reunion aired where she basically said, like, Amanda was never a friend to anyone. Everyone's always a friend to Amanda, and Amanda is never a friend to anyone. She does not call people. She does not check in on people. She's not concerned about anybody but herself. And it's like, you do something wrong to someone, you hurt someone's feelings. Sierra is telling you how much you hurt her feelings. And you couldn't even take the time to sit and watch yourself betray her. Sit and watch the kindness that she gave you, knowing that you betrayed her. Because that would be too painful for you to experience. Meanwhile, you don't give a fuck about the fact that your friend is clearly in pain, sitting across the couch from you. You're sitting there trying to defend yourself. It's evil. It's evil. I'm not going to argue with you about it. If you want to get in the comments and tell me that, it's not that serious, go ahead. It's evil. And I don't think that people like this are people who I want to be around, personally. Then Andy really breaks it down and he says, this is a spectacular friendship betrayal. This is a spectacular betrayal of Sierra's trust. And he kind of says, I don't really feel like I have a sense of what you think or how you feel about hurting her. So can you speak to her? Can you tell us what you think and how you feel and maybe speak to her? And she says, in regards to the playing dumb, that when people insult my intelligence and insult the intelligence of the people that have built them up, who they have harmed, that's what I can't do. That's what I can't. That's what's going to make me tweak. Because what do you mean in regards to? In regards to the thing that we've been sitting in this fucking room talking about for the past 8 hours. She stumbles through her response, and it is the same canned response that her and West have been giving this whole time. This has been a very confusing time. This has happened. These feelings were completely unexpected. I've been sorting through a lot of things. And her response to what she thinks about how she has harmed her friend and how she feels about how she has harmed her friend is not, I cannot believe I could do this to someone who loved me so much. I'm a selfish person and I really, really don't know why getting validation and dick from this rat man was more important to me than being a good friend to someone who has done nothing but show up for me over the past 6 years. I'm actually really concerned about my own well-being and where I go from here, because the idea of hurting someone so much when I know that I would not have been able to survive this summer without her is just devastating. And I'm so incredibly, unbelievably sorry that I did this. And I wish that I could take it back with everything in me. And I didn't, it's not that it was a mistake. I made a choice, but I made the wrong choice. And I'm sorry that I made the wrong choice and that it has caused harm to you. Whatever I need to do in order to mend this relationship moving forward, I know there's probably nothing that I can do. But if there's anything that you can think of, if there is anything that I can do to deserve to be the type of friend that you deserve, I will do it, because I know that I have caused so much harm to you and I want to repair this relationship, or at least get to a place where I can minimize the harm that I have caused to you. Instead of her saying any of that, what does she say? I was sick to my stomach. I lost sleep some nights because I was just so worried about the impact. I developed feelings for someone I wasn't supposed to. Think about that framing. I developed feelings for. It's passive. You didn't just develop feelings. Like, you actively pursued a relationship with this person. This isn't something that happened to you. The thing that really clinched it for me, she's like, it kills me to know that I have caused you this pain. That framing, again, tells me I'm upset that I caused you pain. I'm not upset that you are feeling pain. I don't want to minimize the pain that you are feeling. I feel bad that I am the source of that pain. If that pain had come from somewhere else, who knows how I would be feeling right now. But because it's me that did it, I'm embarrassed, I feel bad, and I'm more concerned about the bad that I feel than I am concerned about doing something to help you feel better. and atone for what I have done wrong to you. And Sierra's response to that, rightfully, is like, you don't feel bad about the pain that you've caused me. Like, you texted me 24 hours before you released this statement. You lied to me multiple times. I was devastated by this news. On the floor crying. Lindsay had to come. Lindsay, who Sierra was beefing with, had to, for several seasons, had to come pick her up off the floor so she could go do her job, because it was unfathomable for her to think that her friend of several years would betray her like this. And for her to sit there and say, there's no apology that you can make, because if you cared so much about hurting my feelings, you would have stopped and thought about me and thought from my perspective before you even did this. If you ever loved me, if you were ever my friend, this wouldn't even have been a thing that you could have done, because it would have occurred to you, maybe the only reason that West wants to hook up with me specifically isn't actually about me and how desirable I am and how much he cares about me, how much he's willing to put up and put on the line for me. Maybe it's actually about the fact that he fucking hates my friend and he's hurt her so many times, time and time again. And the only reason that he would go after me is so that he can get revenge over her. And whether that's true or not, that is at least a thought that you would have. And that is at least a thought that would stop you from being able to pursue a sexual relationship with this man. But the fact that you didn't stop, the fact that you did it anyway, the fact that he said, hey, are there some feelings here? And your response to that wasn't, yeah, I think there are. And actually, ew, I need help. I have to get out of this. Let me go talk to Sierra. Let me go see what we can do to like mitigate these feelings, because I feel very, very bad about this. Instead of that being your response was, delicious. Yeah, can I have some, please? Like from Bilbo Baggins? And Sierra also says after this, because Andy asked her what the hardest part of the season was for her to watch. And Sierra says the hardest part was the second to last episode. And this is some nice shade that she threw in. And she was like, it's because it's really hard for me to see myself speaking life into her and trying to get her out of this situation when I know what she did after. And she's like, I'm not used to women being completely subordinated by their husbands. I'm not used to women who just like give up their sense of self to be with a man. I'm used to women like my mom who work very hard and try very hard to provide for themselves and for their families. And that's what I wanted for Amanda. I wanted for her to be able to have a sense of self and to exert that sense of self in the world. And even if there wasn't a man with her, she could still be herself. But the thing that Sierra is not realizing is that Amanda is tragically male-centered. Like, she'd kill herself if she thought that it would make a man feel good about her. That's literally the worldview that she operates within. And so there was nothing that anyone could have said that would have stopped that. Because this is 34 years of that mindset building versus one person, and that person is a Black woman. She was never going to be able to crack the evil that is Amanda Batula's male-centered mindset. The thing that is the most frustrating for me about West and Amanda is that they are acting like they've won something by the end of this reunion. Amanda is like doing what she used to do with Kyle. She's like, they like bring out Girl Scout cookies and she's like, West, don't eat them. We're cheersing. We don't see no damn cheers. Like, she is fully acting the role of the girlfriend, the woman who's in charge of this guy. And she's so smug about it. And West is so smug about hurting Sierra's feelings and pissing off Lindsay. Because I clocked that he fucking hates Lindsay too. And the reason that he hates Lindsay and Sierra so much is because they see right through his BS. They know exactly who he is and what he is. And the only reason that they see through his BS is because he no longer needs anything from them. So he's gone full mask off with both of them. But he's so smug that he was able to leave this reunion scot-free and that there was no like real consequences for him. And that's the problem. That's going to be the issue that I have. And that's honestly the reason that I wanted to make this entire video, because at the end of it, by the end of the reunion, when Lindsay comes in and she's got that glass of wine and she's had her snack and she's had her break and she's clearly feeling refreshed, and she says, I don't feel like I learned anything. That's how I felt too. She was speaking directly to me. I don't feel like I learned anything. We landed on, oh, we're still trying to figure out what this relationship is. Amanda keeps saying, oh, I have a lot to think about after this. It's clear that there was a lot of stuff that she didn't know about West and his past relationships that she was learning for the first time while she was sitting in this room. How does that affect where they go moving forward? And like, to know all of that and know that like they're still together. They went to Italy after this, like even after everything that she learned is like mind blowing. Like self-esteem is fast, but Amanda Batula is faster. I'm gonna say that. But it's like there was so much at stake. Like whether they considered how Lindsay is like, did you even consider how this would affect anyone beyond just the four of you, beyond Kyle, beyond Sierra, beyond West and Amanda? For West and Amanda to do this, for them to enter into this relationship, that's nuked the whole dynamic. Sierra doesn't want to come back, might not want to come back anymore. Jesse might not want to come back anymore. Or there could be contingencies upon who's going to come back when and why, because they know that West will be there or because they know that Sierra will be there. In the City is this brand new show. They don't know how the audience is going to respond to it. They don't know if people are going to like it enough to keep watching it season after season like they did with Summer House. And now there is a whole contingent of people who are not watching In the City specifically because Amanda is on it. So do they drop her or keep her coming back and just have people continue to not watch the show and have a failure to launch because people hate Amanda so much? And so when Lindsay said, how is it possible that you haven't considered any of this? I was like, finally, someone is speaking the truth. And what happens? We move right on from it. They have to get out of there. It's the end of the day. It's the last thing that was said, basically. The last thing of substance that was basically said in the reunion. And there's no reckoning with that question. There's no answer to that question. And for me, the other essential question that comes in, kind of as an addendum to Lindsay's question of like, you guys are both adults, how did you not consider the blowback that this decision would have, is my other essential question, which is how could these two see the fan reaction, see the reaction from their friends and colleagues, and still not understand why they should have never done this in the first place? How could they still come to the reunion absolutely gobsmacked that people would be mad at them? The fact that West asked Sierra what she means when she said that she thinks he lives a different life on camera and off camera, why are you confused by that statement coming from that specific person? Not just confused, but you seem affronted. You seem offended that she would say that to you. Given all the information that she has about you, what other conclusion would there be for her to draw? And that's the question. Are they stupid? Or is this deliberate? Or is there something else going on? And my answer is a secret third thing. But my other question really is like, why do they seem to think that they can do whatever they want and face no lasting consequences? They did not do their basic jobs. West barely spoke. And when he did speak, it was the same sentence over and over again. I hear you, I apologize. He added nothing of substance. He said nothing interesting. He revealed nothing about his thought process and his motivations. He played dumb, which he does all the time. We watched him do that for 2 reunions. Honestly, he should have been fired after last reunion. Like, he just does not say anything useful or of substance. Meanwhile, he wants to be the star of the show. He wants to be the next Kyle Cook. Same thing with Amanda. She brought nothing of substance to this reunion. She said nothing that cleared anything up. She did not answer anybody's question point blank. All she did was be defensive, yell at people who didn't deserve to be yelled at, and finally wake up from her Xanax fog when it was time to go after Kyle. They have failed at the basic rule of reality TV, which is be interesting. They couldn't even do that. But they seem to think that they will face no consequences for this behavior. We have watched West go on his podcast week after week and reveal things that he said, reveal things that he thinks, things that he feels, say more on this paid podcast, this podcast that is behind a paywall, than he said on the television show that he is getting paid to be on. They are paying you to say these things, and you don't want to say these things on that show, but on your own platform, you're willing and comfortable to say them. Okay, my thesis is that the way that the Summer House scandal played out from tip to tail is white supremacy in action. If you don't want it to be about race, now is your time to exit. It's not just about the way that Sierra was treated. We struggle a lot to understand how white supremacy enacts itself in more mundane ways and to accept the ways that white supremacy enacts itself in more mundane ways. And it's important, if we want to dismantle these power structures, we need to understand the mundane ways in which these systems permeate through every interaction that we have. Which is to say, yes, everything is quite literally always about race. The reunion, as it was presented to us, was never going to be satisfying. It was never going to resolve anything either for the cast or for the audience, because that would require challenging white people's right to do whatever they want just because they want to. White men's right to access whatever women they want, whenever they want, and white women's infantilization. All of these roles allowed Amanda and West to do what they did to Sierra. I made a TikTok where I kind of read this whole scandal through the lens of Orlando Patterson's theory of social and talked about what Amanda and West have done to Sierra as a social assassination, expanding Patterson's thinking here because he's talking specifically about slavery, but I'm expanding it out to white supremacy in general. These white supremacist structures create a system in which Black people are dominated so thoroughly and in a framework that weaponizes not just like an absence of recognition of the Black subject's personhood, but an active non-recognition of the Black person's subjecthood, so that they don't even matter in decision making. Sierra's feelings, Sierra's thoughts, how Sierra would deal with all of this. It didn't even occur to West and Amanda to think about that or to take that into consideration before they decided to hook up and start dating or whatever it was that they were doing, because to them, Sierra is socially dead. That is the status of Black people in interracial spaces under white supremacy. We are viewed as socially dead. We do not register. We are not legible to the white people that we interact with, unless those white people have done a lot of work to unpack racism and white supremacy, which most haven't. And they feel as though they can do whatever they want to us with impunity, almost as slave owners did to slaves, because of this social death. I'm furthering that concept and saying it wasn't just a social death, but a social assassination. They wanted to render her socially dead to the audience and to the world at large, convince others that their actions did not matter, that they could be together with impunity, even regardless of the fallout, because Sierra does not mean anything to these people. And it's happening. There are a lot of people online who are saying West and Sierra's relationship wasn't that significant. It wasn't important. Why would Amanda consider Sierra's relationship with West before she got with West? The only thing that she should really be worrying about is Kyle and the timeline and whether she cheated or not. There are a lot of people saying like, this isn't a scandal. This isn't cheating. It doesn't matter that much because everyone in this group has gotten with people's exes. And it is a denial and an active non-recognition of the specific racial contours of this situation, the specific racial dynamics of this situation, that those who might say that this situation isn't about race are arguing for. That denial amounts to a social assassination of Sierra because it is a refusal to recognize her as a whole person and whole being that could be impacted negatively by what Amanda and West are choosing to do. And that if she is impacted negatively by it, it should not matter because the relationship is not important and therefore she is not important. I hope all of that made sense. So social death and social assassination for me are these engines of white supremacy that basically argue that white people should be allowed to do whatever they want, whether it's to Black people or to others, because there are also people who are arguing that Tom Sandoval and Rachel Leviss didn't do anything wrong and they didn't understand why everyone was so up in arms about the cheating scandal, because it's that breach of conduct, that intentional causing of harm to a person who you claim to care for doesn't register in liberal white supremacist society. There should not be punishment for those actions because white people should have the right to do whatever they want. Further than that, white men should have the right to access any women they want. West had the right to access Sierra under false pretenses, and he did that. That was well within his right. It's her fault for being tricked by him, and now he has the right to access Amanda in whatever way that he wants. Not just because she is a woman, but also because she is a white woman who is in a failed relationship, who could not be provided for and taken care of by her first husband. So now here's this new man to come in and replace him. And if he's able to do it well, then the society will be able to understand what he did as a net positive in the end, because he is usurping a failed patriarch and becoming himself a successful patriarch. Meanwhile, if he doesn't do it well, then he will be sanctioned and called a failure, just as Kyle has been. And the final piece, and the piece that I think is very key to this from Amanda's perspective, is white women's infantilization. White supremacist patriarchy requires white women to be rendered basically children in order for them to be controlled totally. It's kind of an exchange that happens. Like, you get to have the power of whiteness if you also accept being oppressed by white men. And it strips them of all agency, including their intrinsic agency. So they themselves don't see their role in a lot of situations, in a lot of ways that they cause harm. And there is a tendency to attempt to get out of causing harm by, like, what we call white women's tears. Like, they'll just cry if they think that they've done something wrong, because crying will distract people from the fact that they should be mad at you, very much so like a child. And the power structures organize around them in order to argue that they didn't mean to do the bad thing that they did. What is the function of both of these explanations? Of the idea that West had the right to access whoever he wanted sexually, and Amanda didn't mean to do the thing that she did to Sierra, to Kyle, to the show. The function is that white people get to do whatever they want, and the systems of power will come up with the excuses that they need to justify their actions, because under our white supremacist society, they have that power and they have that right. The essential part of this, and this is where kind of like the flop of the reunion comes in, is that because both of these roles are key engines of white supremacy, a white man's power to access women and a white woman's power to basically be rendered powerless and pardoned from any wrongdoing. Even as West and Amanda are being sanctioned by the public and they're getting like negative press and negative attention, they are being pardoned by the people with real power, the production company that runs both In the City and Summer House, and the network, Bravo, and by extension, like NBC Universal. And that's because they make the network money. And because their behavior in this scandal is not in any way deviant from the power structure. It is, in fact, supporting the power structure and giving something to the power structure, giving more proof to the idea that white people should be able to do whatever they want. And if they are able to get away with this and continue to be on reality TV and continue to make money influencing and continue to be in the public sphere, the public backlash will not really mean anything in the long run, because they will still be oil that is greasing the engine of white supremacy and making the people who have real power in production and in the ownership of the network the money that they want to make ultimately. Now, as a quick aside, people have spent a lot of time comparing this scandal to Scandoval, and I think that this is the same reason that the power structure could not condemn Tom Sandoval. He has the right to sleep with whoever he wants because he is a white man. In fact, he's been rewarded with more opportunities because his heinous actions made the network even more money and gave the power structure more money-making potential through making Ariana Madix into a household name. Her star rockets, and there's millions of people who will spend money on products because she is endorsing it. That is funneling so many economic dollars into the system and getting a lot of people at the top of it, very, very rich. And so he's rewarded with these places on House of Villains, with a place in The Traitors. He's on America's Got Talent singing very, very badly and off key. He's humiliating himself. He even did like a screen test for The Valley with his ex-girlfriend, I think, Victoria Lee. And like, he's humiliating himself, but he's getting paid, and the people in charge of him are also getting paid. So ultimately the negative impact is moot. So while it was an interpersonally violent action to sleep with his girlfriend of 9.5 years, close friend, in their bed while his girlfriend was at her grandmother's funeral, mere weeks after losing the dog that she had had for 18 years, it is institutionally acceptable because it was profitable. What he did ended up creating a lot of buzz for Bravo, a lot of buzz for Vanderpump Rules, a lot of buzz for Ariana, and a lot of buzz for Tom himself, negative or positive. Even though Vanderpump Rules ended up getting rebooted after that, even that is like more money-making potential because the old version of the show was dying. It was on its way out. They couldn't figure out a way to make the cast gel as they had in past years, now that they were at a completely different stage in their life. And instead of the scandal bringing the cast together, the producers were able to pull the cast apart. And I don't care what they say. I think that was by design. I think they wanted to pull the cast apart because they wanted to reboot the show, but they didn't have the like reasoning behind rebooting the show. And so everyone being at odds with each other, and Ariana deciding that she was going to leave and Katie deciding that she was going to leave, that finally gave them the push and the public justification as to why they needed to put entirely new, fresh blood into the show, which then made people more likely to watch it because it wasn't just being rebooted because, oh, these guys are old and now it's time to reboot it. It was being rebooted because the old version of the show was no longer viable. So Ariana gets a boon. Tom Sandoval gets his pity appearances and money. And the only person who gets sanctioned in the entire thing is Rachel, the affair partner. But it's not because she is morally wrong for being an affair partner. It's because she tried to escape the structure instead of allowing it to exploit her and use her pain and wrongdoing for fodder and grease for this money-making engine. She is allowed to be the villain and not make any money off of that villainy and not be able to spin that villainy into a coherent public persona that will allow her to continue working in reality TV and the influencer space. And that's allowed because she basically tried to steal what was rightfully owned by the power structure, which is her dignity, pride, and sense of self. Okay, so there have obviously been a lot of updates the Summer House universe since I filmed this video. I think I filmed this last week Thursday, and already so much has happened in such a short space of time. I feel like the producers knew that I had this video in the can because they were like, we got something for that ass. I will say a lot of the points that I made in the more theoretical section of this video are kind of moot, and some of them still apply, but I think they are definitely case dependent. And in this case, West was too stupid and useless to white man, or honestly really just man his way out of this. I think I make a comparison to the Scandoval situation that I still think is generative, and I think that there's a lot of conversation that can be had based off of like coming from that place of thinking that I was in before the Aftermath aired and before the kind of like final interviews about the situation happened. So there's just like a couple of points that I want to hit before I get out of here, because honestly this video is already long enough and I do not need to spend another 12 hours editing. So starting with the Aftermath, Sierra and Miha sit down. They are the last segment, so I'm kind of working backwards. They sit down, they have a conversation. The most concerning thing to me was that we learned that after the reunion filmed, Miha spoke to West on the phone for 6 full hours. I personally cannot imagine what there is to say to a man who has shown me how much he hates me consistently over the period of time that we have been dating. I understand being manipulated. I understand being gaslit and kind of like pulled in by a Svengali. The issue that I have is even when I've been in, unfortunately, quite a few situations like that. And even when I've been in situations like that, I've had enough sense of self and pride, honestly, to say, oh, this person hates me. I have to get out of here. And I'm never going to speak to them again. Danny Phantom has nothing on me and how I will go ghost in a situation like this, okay? So the thing that troubles me and that has always troubled me, it's really just like a different way of living. I'm genuinely not trying to sound like I'm superior or anything because the feelings are still there. You still think about that person. I still am like attached to them. But one thing that I will do immediately is remove access because you no longer get the prize of being in my life, simply for the sheer fact that you don't know how to handle it. So the idea that she would not only continue speaking to him, but she said a lot of our conversations are now over the phone because of her. No, a lot of your conversations are now over the phone because he can't be seen to have like a digital text message trail with you because he is a liar and a schemer and a scammer. And if you could screenshot the messages that he is sending you and post them online or send them to someone else, then he would be in big trouble, I guess, in his mind. I don't know what trouble he can get in now because we all know what type of person that he is. And I don't know what he could do to make Amanda leave him now because I think she's decided that he's going to be her baby daddy. But he doesn't want a paper trail. That's why you have to have phone calls. Like, you should be recording them, not telling us that you're still having them. It's very bleak out there. But like I said, it's just a different way of living, honestly. I get very vindictive very quickly and I get very angry when I feel like people have misused me and and not honored my time and my energy. And so I have to disappear and I have to remove myself from the situation. Everybody isn't like that. I'm concerned though. I am. And I wish her luck in her journey moving forward. I don't think Sierra needs to be a part of that journey. Sierra doesn't need to be associated with any more people who are still speaking to West Wilson. And maybe when she's finished speaking to West Wilson and when she feels enough of her zhuzh to stand up in that and be confident in that, and she gets enough of her sense of self back from him, then they can explore friendship again. But this is not the time, mama. I don't want to see her in that house come July, is what I'm trying to say. Because then it will just be the ghost of West Wilson haunting the halls. And I don't like him in his presence, and I don't like him in his absence either. Now, getting into the next portion of the aftermath, we have Kyle and West's conversation. It was horrible. West continued to attempt his lying situation. He basically is continually trying to show these women who are with him as the problem or the stalkers. Meanwhile, he's just moving in a completely upstanding and rational way. It's not like you didn't lie to them and misrepresent what you wanted from them continually over the course of several months. But anyway, the thing that stuck out to me during his conversation with Kyle, because I'm pretty sure everything else was a lie, was when he said, and this is a lie too, but this is the lie that I remembered. He said that he was out with Sierra one night and she tried to get his address and he didn't give it to her. And I'm like, why is that the detail that you are sticking with? Why is that the thing that you want to make sure that we, the audience, know? Is that she wanted your address, but you didn't give it to her because you are so upstanding and so good and you know when to take a step back and when situations have gone too far. He also said that Miha invited him home with her family for Christmas. He was like, I don't think our relationship is in that stage. So she thought you guys were boyfriend and girlfriend, monogamous for, at that point, February to December, 10 months. And you thought it was normal and a reasonable thing to say to her that you don't think your relationship is in the stage for you to go to her family home for Christmas. And she was supposed to extrapolate from that you were in fact not in a relationship. How does that make sense? Further to the lie about Sierra, allegedly, how did she know that Amanda was at your house on Find My Friends then if she didn't have your address? How was she having sleepovers at your apartment if she didn't have your address? Why lie about stupid shit that we can easily verify to be false. Very odd man. Kyle asks him point blank, he's like, are you in love with Amanda? And he's like, well, I told Amanda. Like, he says Amanda like Steve says Miranda on Sex and the City. He says, I told Amanda that I loved her over the summer. And Kyle is rightfully immediately calls him out, and he's like, okay, but I tell Lindsay I love her all the time, and that's like not romantic at all. So does that mean that you guys were hooking up over the summer, or you were just saying it in a neutral context? Wes doesn't have an answer. So then he asks her, he's like, okay, so what is it? Like, are you in love with her? Like, what's going on? He's basically like, what are your intentions with my daughter? We can talk about the Electra complex implications of that at another date. And West is like, well, I care about her an F-ton. Blew up her life for I care about her an F-ton. And if my theory is correct, plotting with this man for a long periodic time for I care about her an F-ton. Oh, okay. The dog was all over West too. Like, that dog was spending a lot of time with West Wilson. She knew him very well. That's all I'll say about that. The final and most interesting part of the episode for me personally was Amanda and Lindsay's sit down in Lindsay's apartment. They really go through the whole thing, and Lindsay really tries to give her the tough big sister love that Amanda clearly has been missing for the past 34 years of her life, but it falls on deaf ears. It goes straight over her head. We'll get more into why I think that is when we talk about my theory, but Amanda basically is like, yeah, I'm so stupid. I shouldn't have trusted him. I think all of her answers are canned and everything that she says is a lie. But one of the things that she said was, she's really trying to push this storyline of, oh, I just, like, we were only hanging out in group settings. He would like invite me out in group settings and I would always say no. And then finally, after we dropped the statement, I was in a different headspace. So I finally started saying yes. And then once I started going out with him, I was hanging out with him in group settings. And then he came to me one day in February and he was like, yo, do you think there's something here? And I was like, I just had this like flood of emotion. And I started to realize like, hey, maybe this is my person. And we've had all these conversations, about how if we were going to do this, it would have to be serious and I would need to be his girlfriend and we would have to think about like getting married and having babies. And I just like, I can't believe that all of this is happening to me. And I've been so anxious and I still haven't watched the episode. Blah, blah, blah. So all that tells me is that she's sticking to the party line. She really wants us to believe that she is Edna Pontellier and she had an awakening by Kate Chopin. That's what she wants us to believe. Meanwhile, I think she's lying through her teeth. Once again, we will get to that. Lindsay drops the bomb that West and Miha slept together in March, and that West was speaking to Miha on the phone the night before Amanda went to film with Lindsay. That was 20 days after the reunion, so that was sometime in mid-May. They still went to Italy together. Stupid, bird-brained, pick me. Like, none of these words are adequate for whatever is being displayed, whatever the psychological profile that we are encountering in Amanda Batula is. It's just words cease to measure up to the depths that she will go to for an ounce of male approval. At least Kyle was mildly sexy. At least he had that going for him. So that is the Aftermath episodes. Now, the biggest update in the Summer House universe is obviously that West Wilson got fired. I can't say that without bursting into laughter, okay? So I talked extensively in the theoretical portion of this video about how power will align with people who do bad and like excuse their bad behavior as long as they know that those people are usable, i.e. usable to squeeze more capital and i.e. usable to squeeze more life experience out of and exploit for the means of gaining capital. I still stand by that. Here's the issue. The issue is that West is not usable. West is not interesting. He's not fun to look at. He brings nothing. basically. And they finally realized that when he went on his fuck ass podcast and said on air that he hopes that the Knicks lose game 5 so that there will be a game 6 on Tuesday night when the aftermath is supposed to air. So the only way for him to get fired was for him to insinuate that he did not want people to watch the television program that he is getting paid to do. He gets paid to go party over the summer, watch himself party over the summer, react to himself party over the summer, and he even got a bonus episode. What was the per diem rate for that bonus episode? He got all of that. And he still said that he didn't want people to watch it because he was too scared about how that would make him look. So the main difference that I'm seeing, that I'm clocking between West Wilson and the profile of someone like Tom Sandoval or Kyle Cook, who really works on Summer House, is that West Wilson is not, he wants to take everything and he's not willing to give a single thing in return. He doesn't want to give anything in return. He wants to be the number one guy in the group. He wants to be the flagship of the franchise. He wants to be the person that everybody wants to sleep with. He wants to make the most money. He wants to have the hottest girl. He wants everyone to be nice to him all the time and love him and cherish him and throw roses at his feet just for existing. And he will lie to us and obfuscate and create a narrative and a personality and whatever story that he thinks he needs to make to get through whatever filming he's doing without revealing a singular thing about himself. That's the type of person that he is. I think the important thing and the essential thing about Tom Sandoval and why he was able to stay on Vanderpump Rules for season 11 and why he was given House of Villains and given The Traitors and given America's Got Talent is that he lets himself be used. He can be nothing but himself. And he's okay with being laughed at as long as he's being looked at and being paid to be looked at. So there's an inherent narcissistic quality to that, but not in the clinical sense, just literally like how Narcissus was at the pool staring at himself all the time. He loves to be the center of attention. The problem with West is that he wants to be the center of attention, but he doesn't want to do that exchange. Same thing with Kyle. Kyle is open. We watched Kyle on TV for 10 years. Have Amanda as a booty call and treat her poorly. Then have Amanda as a girlfriend and treat her poorly. Cheat on Amanda as his girlfriend. Propose to Amanda right after she found out that he cheated on her. And then be a horrible husband to her and yell at not only her but her friends for several years. And what did he ever say, put the cameras down seriously or continuously? Did he ever hide how he was feeling, hide what he was saying? No, in fact, he revealed more and more. He would go into cupboards where he knew that he was still mic'd up and whisper nasty things about her. He was giving himself to the camera constantly to be used as fodder for this show. And that's why production loves him. So with all that being said, I want to read to you from the Us Weekly article about why West got fired. And then there's also a Vanity Fair article that one of the producers did, where he's basically bullet for bullet refuting all of my points. But do you want to know what? I wasn't born yesterday. Okay. I know what you guys do so that you can hide the truth and make it so that people like me can't clock you because other people are going to come up on the internet and say, wait, but they said the opposite of this. It suits their agenda for you to believe that. Okay. Also, Sierra is more willing to be used than West is. So, of course, Sierra was going to be the one. In this situation, Sierra is going to be the one that they go with. In the Scandoval situation, Ariana was not willing to be used. She had very hard boundaries. And because Sandoval was giving something to the camera, they were like, well, we kind of still need him. So we can't give him up in exchange for you. However, West gives nothing. So if Sierra's one stipulation to come back is, I don't want West there, then they can say, okay, because Sierra's going to give something to them. We have watched her trip and fall over and over and over again in romantic relationships on Summer House. She brings costumes. She's funny. She's good at making friends. She's nice to the new girls, or at least in the recent season, she's been trying to be nice to the new girls. And she's fun to look at. She brings something to the show that everybody else isn't bringing. And West is bringing Nothing. These are like the stupid reasons that West got fired from Summer House. Okay. It says on Us Weekly, West Wilson's Summer House exit explained after Amanda Batula drama. It was a mutual decision between the network and West, a source exclusively tells Us Weekly, noting that West, 31, went in the season 10 reunion already feeling like his time on the show was coming to an end. So it was a mutual decision. Okay. This gives that insider was a part of West's team, but the next thing that it says, it became even clearer that there wasn't a long-term fit anymore, the source says. He's at peace with the decision and is focusing on his podcast and other business ventures. What other business ventures? A second source, so this is giving someone who's actually privy to news about production, exclusively tells us that there was more behind the scenes drama between West and his castmates and his controversial romance with Amanda. According to the second insider, West wasn't asked back for season 11 because he tried to get Kyle, Lindsay, and Carl fired. This man is insane. Like, his delusions of grandeur are crazy. His goal was to be with Amanda and then just film with his friends, the source says. Kyle, Lindsay, and Carl are the 3 original Summer House stars, with Amanda initially being Kyle's girlfriend on the show in season 1 before being upgraded to a full-time cast member. So he wanted to get the 3 OGs who splay their lives out in front of the camera on a weekly basis over the course of the summer fired. Meanwhile, what does he do? Eat hot chip and lie. And he thought that a show surrounded by his lies, his new girlfriend Amanda, and his weird friends was going to be a hit. Also, wasn't Summer House Ozarks a thing? Or did he just plant that in the news to start buzz about it? He's told producers that Lindsay shouldn't film pregnant and being a new mom because it's a show about singles and having fun in the summer, the second source tells us, referring to Lindsay shooting season 9 while she was expecting her first baby. The insider adds, Amanda knew about that and Lindsay was pissed. And that's a thing that Lindsay said. She said that West has immediately tried to threaten her career and basically insinuate that she should get off the show basically. And she learned later that Amanda knew that West was doing that. When it comes to Kyle and Carl, West tried to make the BFFs look bad, telling producers behind the scenes that the show would be better with him and new friends. The source says, we've been watching this show for 10 years. Why do you think the show would be better with you, a liar, and your friends who we don't know? Okay. Outside of his alleged personality disputes, West didn't show his personal life on the show, and he was dating other women who no one knew about, which the insider tells us played part in his departure. The end of this article, there's some cheeky stuff about West and Amanda's relationship already falling apart. I don't know about that. It says Amanda and West are still fully committed to each other. While things haven't been perfect, they are still together. It's not butterflies and rainbows, the insider says, pointing out that the reunion was hard on the new couple. Amanda didn't feel supported by West after the dramatic reunion, which the source says was a huge point of contention. Both of them feel they're in too deep for them to break up at this point, which is crazy. That's crazy. Staying in a relationship because you're in too deep is crazy. But I guess that's what happens when you make a Faustian bargain. So this is when I get into my conspiracy theory, okay? This is my final and definitive theory about the timeline of it all. And a lot of this is gathered from this Aftermath episode and reading these articles and what the producers have said. Amanda, in her talk with Lindsay, mentions that going out with West and his friends was the first time that she had felt like she was young and in her 20s again in years. And I think that, so genuinely, I think that they were plotting this whole thing for a year, since February 2025. I think that West got Miha as his decoy girlfriend. She's far away. She's sequestered. She can't see what he's doing on the day-to-day. But he has her in his back pocket in case anybody ever says, things between you and Amanda are a little bit weird. What's going on? He can say, oh, wait, no, I have a girlfriend. Nothing would be going on between the two of us. So they started their emotional affair or whatever it was in February of 2025, in my opinion. And they have been plotting Amanda's escape from Kyle ever since then. Everything that has happened has been a coordinated move by the two of them to get Amanda farther and farther away from Kyle and get her closer to West. And most importantly, to get both Kyle and Sierra fired from the show. Because remember, West said, who would he fire if he could? Sierra, because he wants everything to be normal. Meanwhile, Sierra's been on the show three seasons longer than you, and you're the one who brings nothing. But anyway, all the little moments when they're in the house and they're like whispering to each other and giggling and laughing, it almost gives to me personally, oh, it's working just as planned. Everything's going according to plan. Amanda's concerted effort to make sure that she said over and over and over again, Sierra's the one who gave me this idea. I wouldn't have thought about this if it wasn't for Sierra. She has a on-screen conversation with Sierra about moving out of the house and separating from Kyle. And it's one of those things where you kind of see her like draw it out of Sierra. Like they're having the conversation and she keeps prompting her and prompting her and prompting her. And then finally Sierra is like, well, what if you just move out of the house for a little bit? And Amanda's like, I don't know, he'd never go for that. And then when she talks to Kyle about it, she's like, I was talking to Sierra and she suggested me moving out. And I thought, we're in such a good place, but I never would want to do something like that to you. But now that it's the end of the summer and you've yelled at me and cursed me out in front of everyone, I just kind of feel like I should probably move out. And that puts the seed in Kyle's head that it was Sierra's idea the whole time for Amanda to move out, not Amanda's own idea. Discord between Kyle and Sierra, we've seen when Kyle doesn't like other members of the cast, like Hannah Burner, Imral, Jordan. Was her name Jordan or Julia? She was from Jordan. Jules, any number of cast members from over the years. If Kyle does not like them and doesn't gel with them, ultimately, they're going to go at a certain point. So if he decides that he doesn't like Sierra anymore, he can get Sierra out. I honestly think that their plan needed like one more summer of them doing this friends to lovers. Like the first phase of the plan was them extracting Amanda from her marriage and putting Sierra's relationship with Kyle on the rocks. And then the second phase of the plan would be building up their friends to lovers relationship over the course of this summer 2026, and also like filming of In the City. Now, why else do I think that? Like I said earlier, Amanda makes sure to drop that she hasn't felt young and in her 20s since she was in her 20s, and she feels that way hanging out with West and his friends. That's a signal to the producers and a signal to the network. We want to get that vibe of people who are young and in their 20s back on the show. Amanda, who's been on the show since season 2, is saying that these people give her that vibe again. Therefore, we should reboot the show and reconstruct it around Amanda and West if we want to get that vibe back. And it's just like Amanda and West's friends, and they're all hanging out, whatever. Now, when she's talking to Lindsay in the Aftermath episode, she's giving that canned answer of, oh, I just had this awakening. Like, we were going out in group settings in late January, early February. He said, do you think there's something here? And then all of a sudden, all of these feelings hit me at once. Well, Lindsay says back to her, he told me and Sierra that you were the one pursuing him and you were the one who was obsessed with him. And Amanda doesn't realize that she gives a lot away when she like turns on. Like you can almost see when her brain turns on when she's having conversations with people, and her brain turned on as soon as Lindsay said that to her. And I think it's because she was like, wait, that's not what we agreed on. We weren't supposed to be saying that. Why would he say that to her? And she's like, I'm going to have a little chat with him. The reason to me that she won't leave him is because she's sunken, that they are in too deep for sure. She's sunken way too much into this relationship. And I think it's been over a year of her life that she's given to building this thing. You don't just think about having babies and getting married to a guy who you've only been talking to for a month. I don't care how long you were friends before that. Like you have to get to know each other in a romantic sense before you can start to like think about building a life together, right? Now, I don't necessarily think that they were sleeping together that entire time. I think they were doing just enough. It might have been that like everything but kind of situation, doing just enough to like keep the thrill going and keep the romance working, but not enough where she would be like, I'm actively cheating on her husband, where she would feel like she had to let go of that strong piece of her identity, which is that she never cheated on Kyle, right? And I genuinely think that the Sierra of it all and West trying to reconcile with Sierra over the summer was another plan that they had with one another, where basically he would reconcile with Sierra and get back in the audience's good graces. And then if and when Sierra gets mad at him again or feels hurt by him again, then they can cast her as a villain and someone who is unreliable because this guy just like did everything that he could to win you back as a friend, and now you're not like you're not falling in line, you're not being reasonable, you're being completely unreasonable in response to this guy who's like falling on his sword constantly trying to get you to forgive him. Basically, what Amanda didn't count on is that West wouldn't be able to charm her in a friend way, and so he basically had to like romance her in order for her to forgive him, which again, there's some self-esteem issues there that we don't have to talk about right now. But like so when she heard from Ben and Sabrina and Jesse that that Sierra and West were going out on double dates and they were like flirting and doing all of this stuff, that's why she was freaking out. She was like, that's not giving friends. Like, that's not a friends thing. That is like really fast. Like, that's not what we agreed to. That's not what we talked about, West. Ultimately, I think this was supposed to be a hostile takeover of the Summer House TV show. And that's honestly why the reaction from them was the way that it was during the reunion, too, because they had severed themselves from these relationships a long time ago. She wasn't friends with Sierra anymore. In fact, she treated Sierra like Sierra was the mistress in her relationship with West, as opposed to Amanda being the person who was plotting behind Sierra's back to get with Sierra's ex. Her disdain for Kyle is just like so clear. And I honestly think that if she had been successful in pulling the rug out from under him and like getting this show away from him, that would have been the ultimate FU to Kyle. And that would have absolutely like ruined his sense of self once and for all, which would have been a good gambit if she had not plotted it with the honestly most useless member of the cast. Like the least interesting, most useless member of the cast. No one else would have done it though. Genuinely, no one else would have gone for, hey, let's take Kyle down and take this show over together. Because let's think about what a summer house built around West Wilson's friends and Amanda Batula would be. Napping, smoking, and I'm certain that it would be a scent that would roil off of the TV screen. I'm absolutely 100% certain about that. Like, you would be able to smell them in your home. The other thing that I forgot to say too, in the aftermath, she's talking about how the whole timeline that she gives is a lie, in my opinion. She says they were hanging out in all these group settings over like January and February. We saw her out at an intimate dinner with him the day after she told Kyle that she was getting separated. She posted that on her Instagram. We allegedly saw her coat and scarf at West's house on New Year's Eve, after midnight. So yeah, New Year's Day. And that was the same day that she claimed that she was laying in bed at home watching Kyle's little location at a hotel in Hoboken, a hotel that he was supposed to be at with her. Like, they were supposed to go to this event together, and she didn't go with him. She instead went out to go hang out with West. I don't know, that's hard. It's hard for me to believe that this was your final straw when you weren't even in the house yourself. And he probably was too blasted to check her location and know that, but like, she was not in the house. And the night prior to that was Sierra's 30th birthday, and she didn't show up for that, but she did allegedly go to West's house for New Year's the next day. And then we saw them hanging out with Jesse throughout January. And then they were hanging out alone a lot of the time. They were hanging out alone for so much time. And remember too, in the beginning of summer 2025, Kyle says to Amanda, you spent more time with West in the last 6 months than you've spent with me, which would put us where? February of 2025. I think this was two dumb bitches telling each other exactly, plotting when they were blasted out of their minds and clearly out of their depth. They tried to do the doer and they failed miserably because they couldn't stop themselves from gloating. Really, all they had to do was make it to summer. I don't think it would have gone the way that they anticipated. Like, I think they anticipated that everyone would be like, oh my God, friends to lovers. Yay, so cute. Amanda and West. But we were always going to react like this was a nasty, weird, incestuous situation because it is. We can't, and we don't have stakes in it. We don't have any skin in the game. So we're not incentivized to strip it of all the context. We just are dealing with what we're dealing with. Anyways, those are my updates for today, June 17th. Thank you. So after kind of teasing apart some of the power dynamics in the reality show and why I think production is okay with letting them get away with it, they didn't commit a crime, but it's just like, that's just the easiest like terminology I can use. I want to talk a little bit about the West and individualism and liberalism and why there are so many people who, like Amanda and West, are absolutely gobsmacked at the idea that people would be upset at what they have done. I've seen so many people on Reddit, and so many people on Reddit mostly, because that really is the butt of the internet, saying, well, Sierra is so territorial with the men that she dates. She's so like possessive over them. She doesn't own West. He can do whatever he wants. He can sleep with Amanda if that's what he wants to do. To which I say, you must not, A, have serious interpersonal relationships with people around you, or B, care about anyone except yourself. Because I'm certain that if you were in Sierra's shoes, you would be just as devastated as she is. And you would also hope that other people would be devastated on your behalf, the way a lot of the audience is devastated on Sierra's behalf. But because you're looking out of your eyes at someone else going through this experience, you don't understand why it's happening, but you don't have enough access to empathy to be able to put yourself in that person's shoes. I think that that is in part because of this individualist mindset in the world. We have this idea of like, we should be able to do whatever we want, you know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that is both the justification and like the logical underpinning of West and Amanda's choice to do this. I mean, it's hard to even say logical underpinning because where was the logic in making this decision? But I mean, everything has a logic about it. That was both the underpinning of their decision to do this and also the underpinning of the reaction from some sectors of the audience as to why this is not that big of a deal. There are a lot of people, and I see this in any type of like big online talking point or any reckoning or even just like the backlash against cancel culture. A lot of people bristle against the idea of having an obligation to your fellow man, regardless of the level of relationship. Like, you have an obligation to be kind to people. We live in this world of like, nobody owes you anything. People might not owe you like finance capital, but people do owe you a certain level of respect and honoring of your humanity just based off of the fact that you are a human. So I would say no, people do actually owe you things. Like I said, no one has to like put themselves out for you or give you money or give you items simply because you're asking for them. But people do actually owe you common decency. There's a reason that that term even exists. And so when people get canceled or there is a huge backlash, there's always the counter backlash of people saying, well, why would they owe this person who we are canceling them on behalf of the common decency of considering them before they took this action that could potentially devastate that person? And I want to talk very self-consciously about the way that white supremacy interacts with individualism. And I want to be clear when I'm talking about white supremacy that I do not think that Amanda and Wes are self-consciously wielding white supremacy as a cudgel to like beat Sierra over the head with, or to like wield in reference to the audience or anything like that. I don't think they're thinking to themselves, I as a white person cannot wait. The purpose of me bringing up white supremacy in this context is because white supremacy and individualism, liberalism are co-constitutive of one another. You can't have one without the other. They created each other at the same time. Individualism, because liberalism and white supremacy are co-constitutive of one another. They have created each other at the same time. There are blind spots in the logic, in the organizing logic of liberalism that are white supremacy shaped. There have always been exceptions for who it is and is not okay to wrong in liberalism because of white supremacy. And Black people have consistently been that exception. So that's why Sierra being the primary victim in this situation, because you can make arguments about how Kyle was a bad husband and we shouldn't feel bad for him because of X, Y, and Z. You can make those arguments, but Sierra didn't do anything to West or Amanda to merit this level of revenge on their part. And so her being the primary victim in this scenario, like, absolutely blameless, didn't do anything, and still got the brunt of the pain and emotional damage. Kind of, she's starting on a back foot because she is Black. People are less likely to see her victimization and honor her victimhood because she is Black. And so they will come up with any number of justifications for why Amanda and West were allowed to do this because the person that they did it to is a Black woman. So you might say, like, oh, it's not because she's Black, it's because they are allowed to do whatever they want. And that is the thing. The individualist logic that was created under liberalism is in and of itself white supremacist. Individualism is a white supremacist construct because it was created under the umbrella of liberalism and used as kind of an organizing logic for the liberalism that built a lot of the Enlightenment thinkers' like worldview. And so it is itself also white supremacist. To think that we all are just floating like dots in the ether and we should be allowed to do whatever we want, whenever we want, to whomever we want, and exercise our freedom in whatever way feels the most natural to us. And you might be thinking, like, well, we've never lived in a society where we can do whatever we want. It's just this scenario where they didn't have to consider her feelings because they are adults and they're allowed to behave in whatever manner they want to. Well, yes, we've never lived in a society where we can do whatever we want. There are like rules and bounds because of what John Hobbes called the state of nature. If you've ever read Leviathan, I had to read it in my 10th grade NSL class. It's kind of the counter argument against this idea of liberal individualism. And it is the like important other piece of the like building blocks of the ideology that created the state of the Americas, and a lot of the intellectual enlightenment. It is this idea that we should all have access to be able to do whatever we want and to absolute freedom within a bound. So you can't just go around unaliving people or destroying people's property or stealing from people, because that would create chaos and that would lead to anarchy and that would lead to what Hobbes calls a state of nature. That concept of the state of nature is also in and of itself white supremacist because it is juxtaposed against what they assume to be happening in like cultures in Southeast Asia and Africa, and it's later used as a justification for colonization, but we don't have time to get into all of that. Basically, there are limits to how you can behave and how you can show up in the world because you do not want to create a state of nature in the world around you and lead to anarchy. But again, as I said before, those limits have always excluded Black people. You can commit acts of heinous violence against Black people under this logic because Black people are not considered people. That's why the founding fathers, who were talking about individualism and freedom and all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with inalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, also owned slaves who were not given the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So if we're going to act like West and Amanda have the right to do whatever they want because they're two consenting adults, we have to think about why we are reacting like that and why we are acting like that. And we also have to think about whose pain is excused and almost vilified because that is the response and reaction that we have. And that also seems to be the way that Amanda is looking at the scenario. She's like, yeah, Sierra got hurt, but what am I supposed to do? Stop myself from live, laugh, and loving just because someone else might be hurt? And that lack of accountability to another person, especially a person who you claim to exist in interpersonal relationship with, is very startling to me. And the fact that so many people online seem to be not even necessarily justifying, but like supporting that mindset through their like surprise at why this is even such a big story, I also find that very confusing. The idea that you would have friends who claim to love you and care about you and who listen to your problems and who you tell about your hurt feelings and who you share in positive experiences with as well. You have fun with them, you go out, you trust them. The fact that you would have people that you would put your trust into like that, and then they would betray you and try and justify their betrayal of you by saying that they have no obligation towards you. That I find very concerning. And this idea of living in a world without obligation to other people is very liberal. It is very Age of Enlightenment philosophy that leads to the creation of the United States of America. Because obligation to others would stop you from being able to do whatever you want and would stop you from being able to express yourself in an individualistic manner. Part of what stops you is laws, right? To prevent the state of nature. But the other part, when we're talking about things that aren't literally crimes, is the obligation to your fellow man to say, I do not want to do something that will cause you harm. And the fact that that obligation is constantly being called into question, especially nowadays when we're looking at like the way that technology has basically like taken over all of our lives, like I find it quite troublesome. But again, that would be a digression that I don't have time to go on. What is the solution here? Where do we go from here? And I think a lot of people are struggling with this scenario and struggling to even be upset with Amanda and West, because it's like, we're not a judge, jury, or executioner. They didn't commit a crime. Punishment does not feel right. And a lot of people bristle against, and this is the same thing with the like complaints about cancel culture. A lot of people bristle against the idea of punishing people who have done wrong, but like not literally committed a crime, because honestly, because of this concept of individualism and because of the idea of like, when it's our turn to do something wrong, we don't want to feel like we are going to get punished by a collective mass, right? And it does feel wrong. It does feel unnatural to get so upset about what two strangers chose to do to another person who is also effectively a stranger. What I think is important to me about this scenario is, like I said, where we go from here. There are multiple ways that we can go. We can go the way that West and Amanda seem to be assuming that things will go, which is that everything will be fine. Maybe people online, people whose opinions don't really matter, will be annoyed at them or upset at them or even hate them for any amount of time. But in the long run, nothing will really change. They'll still be able to be on Bravo. They'll still be able to be reality TV stars. They can still be influencers, and they can still have access to people's attention that it then turns into currency. Or it can go the other extreme, which is the other kind of like organizing logic of American society, which is puritanical, right? The Puritans were the first white people to settle in the Americas for a reason, and they have an impact on American society a lot. They have like a very strong impact on the way that American society has progressed, but they also get maligned by that same like group of liberal, enlightened people who came to the continent after them, because in part they were a communal society. A slight against a member of the society was considered to be a slight against the whole. So let's take the Scarlet Letter for a perfect example. A woman cheats on her husband and she gets a scarlet A painted on her top, and she is shunned for the rest of her life by the entire society because she didn't just cheat on her husband. She committed an act that set a bad example for the children, and the society has to show her that she is not going to get access to the benefits of living in a community anymore if she is going to breach the rules of the community. Now, do we think that's right? No. A lot of the time, like the analysis of the Scarlet Letter, the stories that we tell about the Puritans are always about how they took accountability too far. They kind of like weaponized keeping people in line and basically threatened them with being isolated from the community if they did not fall in line. And there are things that they considered to be slights that we don't today. Like having sex out of wedlock, we don't consider to be a slight. We don't consider to be a sin against God and therefore a sin against the community. But they did. And they were going to give you the same punishment for that they gave for people who like chopped off someone's hand without reason or someone. But I think that we can like recognize the extreme religious fanaticism of that, while also recognizing that the shell of collectivism is actually something that we should strive towards. And so we're not looking for collective accountability in the sense of the Puritans. And we're not going to, we wouldn't feel good letting them get away with it, even though we know it's not a crime. So what do we do? There are societies, particularly in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa. I think this is like a Swahili word, Ubuntu, which is this sense of like oneness that basically makes you accountable to the people around you, because harming someone else is harming yourself. Not because harming someone else is something that you need to be punished for and like isolated from the society for, but because you do harm unto yourself by causing somebody else to feel or be. And so the way that you remedy that is through a like collective process, is through what in a lot of like modern day parlance is called restorative justice. Now, we as an audience do not have access to that restorative justice. We cannot hold Amanda and West accountable. We do not know these people. We do not speak to them. And they clearly don't care about us, because if they did, they would have they care about us in as far as allowing us to feel good about continuing to give them attention. They don't care about us in as far as actually like thinking about and repenting or like feeling bad about the things that they have done wrong, which again, why should they? They don't know us. We can tell ourselves that, oh, Amanda and or West is a narcissist or has BPD or is going through a psychotic break or any number of like mental illnesses that are happening. But the reason that we reach for those types of explanations is because it is almost this disease. I don't know what the word is, but it is like a disease minded mindset where we basically think there's something about them that is different to us. And we want to set them against who we are and how we behave and mark them as unsafe and mark ourselves as safe. And so if we can just quarantine them, if we can, this is like a very like carceral mindset too. If we can put them in the land of the ill, mentally or otherwise, then we won't have to take responsibility for the parts of them that also show up in us, right? And we can tell ourselves a lot of stories that will allow us to continue to either pay attention to them or to feel okay about them continuing to exist in the influencer and reality TV spheres. We won't have to think about how we are implicated in this. Because at the end of the day, like West and Amanda's outcomes are 50% in the hands of the producers and whether or not the producers want to continue to give them a place on reality TV in exchange for them continuing to allow their lives to be exploited for content, right? And then it is 50% in our hands as audience. Think of it like in Congress, like if you don't have a 2/3 majority to pass something, I don't remember exactly, but you need a 2/3 majority for something. And if you don't get that 2/3 majority, then water. The producers can only do so much, but if we as the audience, if majority of this audience, let's say like over 33% of the audience decides that we are not interested in seeing them, then Amanda and West's careers are donezo. Because the thing is, like, their behavior is legible to the people in power. Their behavior is understandable because it makes them money, it brings more eyes to the network, and it also is coherent with the individualist white supremacist logic that created the power structure in the first place. And we even see how their behavior is legible to those in power because West and Amanda have already been rewarded. They gave them as good of an edit as they could possibly get out of that 10-hour-long filming day, even though they didn't deserve it because they didn't even do the bare minimum, which is showing up to their jobs prepared and being interesting. They cut out parts that would be incriminating and that would show you just how evil Amanda is as a person. And we know that because of the leaks that I did not listen to, allegedly for entertainment purposes only. It allowed them to come to the reunion in the first place and do whatever they wanted, act however they wanted, say whatever they wanted, be out allegedly, push this narrative that they're on some beta blockers. Like that, I cannot stress enough how that would not have been able to happen if someone in production didn't allow that to happen. They would have said to them, you're clearly on something. You're on something. We need to film this reunion. Somebody put like 3 cups of coffee in her right now. But because they wanted to protect her and insulate her, Amanda especially, but also West, they let them just go out in the state that they were in and just like completely sail through the reunion and get through the day without revealing anything or satisfying anyone from the cast to the audience. And now they're getting rewarded with even more focused attention on them. This bonus episode is just what they wanted. They were never going to show up to the reunion and reveal anything because they are the types of people who operate exclusively in one-on-one scenarios. So of course they would want to have the opportunity to talk to Lindsay and talk to Carl one-on-one outside of this pressure cooker environment and be able to say their piece and be honest about whatever it is that they say. And this is an entire episode of television that, regardless of how much of Sierra and Miha they put in, is going to end up being 2/3 Amanda and West. And that is the reward. And they know that. If they take this as it is meant, which is that we, the production, are on your side, and no matter what the audience says to you, we'll stick by you, then they'll allow themselves to be used further by those in power. Amanda will come back for In the City season 2 and just stay off the internet and block her name and filter out all the negative comments and move just as obliviously and unplugged as she has been. Meanwhile, West may not be on Summer House anymore, but he can go be on The Traitors, he can go be on House of Villains, he can go be on The Challenge, any other reality TV show that he wants to be on. He can still partner with like alcohol companies and they can make it do like a joke about how he's a bad boy and whatever. The power that we have in as the audience is if we let them. If we put our eyes on podcasts that they do, if we continue to follow them, allegedly, in my opinion, I'm pretty sure Amanda is buying followers, but like if people actually like mass unfollow her and her engagement plummets on her pages, her value as an influencer will also plummet. Same thing with West. If we choose not to watch a season of The Traitors if either of them is on it, if we choose not to watch a season of House of Villains if either of them is on it, if we effectively, like the Puritans did, shun them, then they will finally not have access to this type of career. And it is going to feel crazy. And it is going to feel like it is a punishment that doesn't fit the crime because, like I said, all these people are strangers. We don't know these people, whatever. But if you feel icky about the idea that they can do something that is so brazen and so bad and harm someone like Sierra, who has been nothing but like kind and open so thoroughly and just continue on with their lives like nothing has happened, then that's what you have to do. That is the extreme that you have to take it to. You don't have to get online and say anything to them. You don't have to open your mouth. In fact, actually getting online and saying anything to them will make it even worse. And the reason that this is different than like Puritans shunning someone who had sex outside of wedlock is because we don't have any power over them. They don't depend on us to give them food, water, shelter, or anything like that. We are just people who are watching them. They can go get any other job. If influencing and being a reality TV star is not an option anymore, it's not like they're being put into a mean meat grinder and set out to pasture or anything. Like, we're not going to take them in the back and old yeller them. We're just saying you can't have this job that you clearly showed that you are not worthy of having anymore. And if that still feels icky to you, if that still feels like too extreme of a solution, well then have fun seeing them online for the rest of your existence and seeing them on your television for the rest of your existence. And that's fine. I know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be looking at these people. I'm going to block their names, mute their names on all of the social media that I follow. I'm going to block them. I will not watch a season of television that they are a part of, even if it is a show that I normally watch. And I'm just going to pretend like these people don't exist. And I'm going to feel absolutely fine in my choice to do that because I know that this is more consideration. I have given them more consideration, more thought, more care, more empathy as two strangers than they gave to Sierra, who time and time again chose to give them the gift of opening herself up to them, and who they absolutely, on Amanda's side, took for granted and didn't care enough about to consider before she went and got her little rocks off. And on West's side, in my opinion, definitely chose to embarrass and humiliate and get revenge on purpose. So even though I'm not in it, you know, now why am I in it? I'm not in it, but I for damn sure don't want to see either of these people ever again. I think that lady is evil. And I think that man is evil too. And they might be birds of a feather and they might be soulmates and they might get married and have babies and do whatever, but I don't give a fuck. I don't want to see it. Amanda, go get another graphic designing job. West, you don't have any talents. You're not cool. You're not interesting. You're not funny. The personality that you gave us is clearly a lie. You just like cobbled it together from what you think people want to see of you. So there's nothing really that you have going for you. So there's nothing that I can even suggest that you go and do as a career. So I guess you can stay home with the kids. God bless them. I pray for them. I hope that they have some sort of outlet to get away from you and your crazed ramblings about what everybody thinks about not only them, but also about you. But I'm thinking about it now, and I don't even think that he can make a sandwich for a child well. I don't even think that he can keep a house well. Like, that requires skill, and that requires a level of commitment and a level of talent that I do not think that he has access to. But hey, that might be his last option, because the resume isn't going to get him a job. So yeah, Amanda can take care of him. She can pay for him, they won't be influencing anyone if I have anything to say about it. You have your free will. If you think that's too extreme, don't tell me about it. Think about it in yourself, because I don't care. I'm going to do what I want. And I'm going to tell the people to do what they want. I have been filming for so long that my natural oils have broken through this one size on till dawn setting spray. And like, that's saying something. I started this at 6 p.m. It is 11. I haven't been talking that whole time. Like, I took breaks, I got water, I ate dinner, but if you have finished watching, thank you again so much for watching this. Thank you for being here. I know I said a lot. I know I did a lot. Hopefully this is going to be one that you come back to multiple times, because there's a lot of different pieces to unpack in my own personal opinion. If you liked me or any part of this video, please give this video a big thumbs up. That really does help me to find other people who might be interested in the content that I'm putting out. Don't forget that my GoFundMe, my PayPal, my Cash App, and my Venmo are all linked in the description down below, along with my YouTube memberships and Patreon, any number of ways that you can support me. I'm trying to raise money to get this visa so that I can stay in this country and continue my PhD studies and my research. So if you liked this video, you liked the mindset and approach and theoretical framework that I set this video up with, that I was able to do all of this because so many people supported me in being able to go to graduate school. I don't come from family money. I'm not generationally wealthy like West and Amanda are. So the only reason that I'm able to be here and to do this is because of my viewers and my friends and family and extended friends and family who helped to support me. So thank you guys so much, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart. Like I said at a certain point in this video, you're not obligated to give anyone cash, especially if you don't have that cash to give. But if you can find it in your heart and the kindness of your soul to help me, I would so much appreciate it. And I will give that value back to you by doing deeply researched videos just like this one. So I have down below some of the sources that helped me to underpin the thinking process that I achieved in this video. And also all of my links, everything else. Again, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you can see the next video that I put out. I have a lot of really great content coming this summer. I'm so excited about it. I don't want to say goodbye because I've been talking for so damn long. I'm like, what is it going to be like when I'm not talking anymore? It's going to be so quiet in here. Thank you again. I love you all, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.